The Throne of the Mechas. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 326 Gambling. In order to prevent the hotel staff from colluding with Rayla to tamper with the Mecha, Xia Xingchen followed the investigators sent by the hotel to the Mecha hangar in the name of Mecha repairman. Rayla also brought his bodyguards and the host with him. Hugo didn't know what happened. Xia Xingchen asked him to open the Mecha cockpit. Hugo came out. The senior Mecha repairman of the Golden City Hotel looked into the cockpit and his eyes were wide open. He simply couldn't let go of this Mecha. He carefully checked the Mecha and then said to the other two mediators and the host on the scene, "The designer of this Mecha is simply a genius. He used the motion simulation control system to perfectly solve the problem of insufficient mental strength of the Terami people. Moreover, the natural racial advantage of the Terami people can just make up for the disadvantage of the motion simulation operating system that consumes a lot of physical strength of the Mecha master. I checked carefully. This Mecha has no other Mecha masters and remote control systems. It can indeed be controlled by the Terami people. Except for Hugo and Xia Xingchen, several other people on the scene were shocked. The host immediately told the audience in the venue the news, which caused an uproar again. However, despite this, they still did not think that Hugo could win. After all, being able to drive a Mecha does not mean having combat effectiveness. You have to know that Hugo's opponent is a C-level Mecha master. The senior maintenance technician sent by the Golden City Hotel asked Xia Xingchen, "My dear, the design of this Mecha is simply a stroke of genius. I wonder which Mecha designer created it." Xia Xingchen clasped his fists and said, "My dear master, this Terami warrior Mecha was designed by Mr. Zhuo Liheng, the chief Mecha designer of Tang Dynasty Group and the master of Mecha industry, who I invited at a high price. Terami warrior was the work of Father Free, but in order to prevent someone from finding out about Father Free, he used the name of Mr. Zhuo Liheng. So that's it. It's Mr. Zhuo's masterpiece. I can see the master's work with my own eyes in this life, and I will die without regrets." The Mecha maintenance technician's eyes flashed with light, just like a thirsty old pervert seeing a naked beauty. Xia Xingchen had to interrupt him. "Old man, if you are interested in mechas, we can make an appointment to study them slowly later. We are going to compete." "Oh, yes, we can't delay business." The Mecha maintenance technician scratched his head. The host returned to his post and announced, "Mr. Hugo's Terami warrior Mech was indeed driven by him personally, without cheating. Now, let's count down together." As the countdown on the big screen reached 0, the Mech passage doors on both sides of the arena opened at the same time, and two Mechas flew out of the Mech hangars on both sides of the arena. The Terami warrior Mech held an alloy spear nearly 5 meters long. The formula and manufacturing process of this spear are very complicated, and it is an A-level Mech weapon. This was also found by Mr. Zhuo Liheng when he was browsing the second-hand Mech parts market on the Watchstar space station. At that time, its surface was rusty and was disposed of by the original parts store owner at the price of scrap steel. Mr. Zhuo Liheng found it and gave it to Hugo, who loved it. Because the Terami people are good at fighting with spears, such a Mech weapon is absolutely handy for him. The two Mechas stood 30 meters apart and observed each other. Pogba felt that the situation was not good. Hugo did not launch a strong attack like other Mecha rookies, but was observing himself calmly and looking at the posture of the Terami warrior Mecha holding the spear. There was no flaw, just like a prehistoric beast, which brought him great pressure. However, the audience at the scene did not know this. 99% of them spent a lot of money to buy Pogba to win. "Kill this blue monster, blow up its ass. If you dare to lose, I will kill your whole family." The audience was immediately excited. 10 seconds, 20 seconds. A minute passed, and Hugo still did not move. Pogba felt that the pressure on his body was getting greater and greater. Finally, he could not bear the pressure, stepped on the power pedal, and rushed forward waving the thermal axe. But at the moment, when his Mecha thruster sprayed white flames, the armor plate on the back of his Oni warrior Mecha suddenly opened, and 16 macro anti-Mecha missiles shot out from all directions at Hugo's Terami warrior Mecha. This was Pogba's trump card. He felt that Hugo was too threatening, so he used all his strength right from the start. He didn't want any accidents to happen. To be the first human mecha master, to be defeated by the Terami mecha? If so, he would rather be made into a specimen by the perverted Tequila family. He would never allow such a thing to happen. But what he didn't know was that he was not the first one. After all, after many battles, Hugo had destroyed dozens of mechas of the Star Pirates. Facing the macro missiles that were shot at him, Hugo's blood and ki flowed in his body, and the tip of the alloy spear of the mecha actually lit up. Hugo took advantage of the situation and pointed the spear at the ground 2 meters in front of his mecha. At the same time, the thrusters in front of the mecha were fully opened, and the tail thrusters were also adjusted. The light ball at the tip of the spear collided with the ground, causing a violent explosion. For a time, the arena was full of sand and rocks, and those macro anti-mecha missiles drilled into the exploding light ball one after another, and then were detonated one after another. And Hugo took advantage of the shock wave of the explosion, and jumped back more than 30 meters. He was not idle at the moment of leaping backwards. When the mecha moved backwards, the Terami warrior mecha held a spear in his right hand, and raised his left hand. The device on the back of the mecha automatically sent a light energy short spear to his hand. The Terami mecha exerted force with his left arm, and the short spear shot out instantly, shooting into the smoke and dust of the explosion. Pogba was very depressed. This move was his trump card. He had used it many times, and became more and more handy. But he had never seen such a way of dodging. According to the normal routine, he should launch a charge when the opponent was busy dodging the anti-mecha missile. But there was smoke and gravel in front of him, and he hesitated again and stopped. But it was precisely because of his hesitation that he saved his life. A light energy short spear flew out from the smoke and dust, just inserted into the connection between the right shoulder and the torso of the Onimusha mecha. Chapter 327 Gambling. The third round of the gambling fight between Xia Xingchen and the slave trader Ayala was underway. Pogba, a C-class mecha master under Ayala, was fighting with Hugo. He was very afraid of Hugo, so he used his ultimate move right from the start, firing 16 macro anti-mecha missiles at Hugo. Hugo used his combat skills, and a ball of light appeared at the tip of the alloy spear of the mecha. The huge explosion stirred up smoke and dust all over the sky, and detonated those anti-mecha missiles. Hugo's mecha threw out a light energy short spear as it retreated. Pogba hesitated in the face of the smoke and dust in front of him, and it was this hesitation that saved his life. A light energy short spear shot out from the smoke and dust, hitting the connection between the right shoulder and torso of the Ghost Dancer's mecha. The Ghost Warrior's shoulder suddenly emitted a burst of explosions and electric sparks, and his entire right arm was hammered down, and the light energy axe in the right hand of the mecha also fell to the ground. This scared Pogba to death. If he had rushed forward as usual, the spear would have hit the cockpit of the mecha, and he would have been a corpse now. But now that his right arm was useless, he could only throw away the alloy shield in his left hand. He took out a light sword from the waist of the mecha. At this time, the audience fell into panic and anxiety. Most of them placed a heavy bet on Pogba to win. Although the odds were low, the chances were high, so many people invested all their wealth. If Pogba lost, about half of the people sitting there would go bankrupt. How could this happen? Pogba, you are a waste. Rayla, you are a big liar. My money. Waiter, come quickly, this man has a heart attack. At this time, Rayla's face was livid. He didn't expect Pogba to lose this mecha fighting game. Now he only has a few million available liquid funds in his account. He has so many people and slaves under him, and this amount of money can't even support 2 days. Someone said he could take out a loan. But now it's a chaotic time. No bank will give you a mortgage, and no one dares to lend money to others at this time. Once the war starts, who can you ask for the money? As for usury, Rayla, as a slave trader, knows clearly that these loan sharks don't want you to change the money at all. They will drain your assets step by step and finally sell you as a slave. Lend him a courage, and don't dare to borrow money from those people. Now, Rayla can only pray that Pogba can fight for his spirit and turn defeat into victory. At this time, Hugo has the upper hand. He is not polite at all, and the alloy spear dances vigorously. Xia Xingchen can see that Yugo's spear technique contains both the unique traditional martial arts of the Teremi people and the nameless stick technique of the Holy Temple organization. When Yugo is free, he often competes with Hao Cheng. Later, Xia Xingchen also introduced the nameless stick technique to him in detail. Later, Yugo found that it was also good to use a spear to perform the nameless stick technique, so he combined the stick technique with the spear moves. Yugo's mecha looked like a very flexible Teremi in the fighting field. His moves made Pogba flustered. In a moment of carelessness, the left shoulder joint of the Inamasha mecha was hit by a spear, and the entire left arm was removed. Admit defeat. I won't kill you, Yugo said calmly in the public channel. But at this time, Pogba had lost his temper. This was a matter of dignity. Being defeated by a Teremi in a mecha is like a lion being bitten to death by a sheep. This is a huge shame. Thinking of this, Pogba turned on the insurance of the mecha self-destruct system, and a bright red self-destruct handle popped out. With a slight pull, the mecha would explode. He clenched his teeth, his gums bled, and he rushed towards Yugo with force on his feet. He wanted to die with Yugo. Yugo raised his hand again, and this time two light energy short spears appeared on his left hand of the mecha at the same time. Looking at the encourager who was rushing over desperately, two short spears whizzed out and accurately hit the knee joint gap of the Oni warrior mech. This move was considered amazing by experts. It was hard to imagine how difficult it was to throw two short spears with one hand at the same time and attack two different moving targets. The Oni warrior mech fell down immediately. The strong inertia made it slide forward for dozens of meters, and fell heavily to the ground. At this time, the Teremi warrior mech had turned on the thrusters at the tail and rose to a height of more than 30 meters. Pogba's eyes were full of despair and unwillingness, and he pulled down the handle in his hand with hatred. A ball of fire shot up into the sky, and the Oni warrior mech in front of him was blown to pieces. Not only did he fail, but he would also be recorded in history as a loser. The first mecha division defeated by the Teremi people with mecha. Ah, my money. I don't want to die. This is a nightmare. It must be a nightmare. Several people died of heart attacks, or went into shock at the scene of the mecha arena, and more than a dozen people had cerebral blood vessels burst. Some people shot themselves in the hotel, and it is said that someone jumped from the more than 2,000 meter high observation deck of the Golden City Hotel. However, for the Golden City Hotel, this result made them very happy. After deducting the compensation costs, they made a net profit of more than 100 billion star coins from the opening of this game. And seeing Raela lose, the hotel was also very happy, because this fat guy was about to be on the hotel's blacklist. Xia Xingchen and others were also very happy. It was not just because Yugo won. Xia Xingchen invested 1 billion star coins, and won nearly 10 billion star coins. And Keelan also bet 500 million, which was his entire fortune, and his wealth increased tenfold. Baum and Julian didn't have that much money, but they gritted their teeth and bet 10 million star coins each, and as a result, they suddenly became billionaires. Xia Xingchen and others left with satisfaction. Keelan, Julian and Baum sent the mecha back to the spaceship as usual. But Raela was almost collapsed now. He was now at the end of his rope. The most reliable part of the bet failed, and his hundreds of billions of assets were gone overnight. Now he had to win this game. Regardless of whether he could get Yugo, as long as he could win, he could get the 5 billion star coins that would be placed in the account of the Golden City Hotel, and supervised by the hotel, and win Xia Xingchen's 5 billion bet. Only with these 10 billion star coins could he turn around and turn over. After that, Raela went to the pawn shop without stopping, and temporarily mortgaged a large spaceship and 5 medium-sized spaceships of his slave hunting team for 10 billion star coins. The mortgage period was 1 day. In this short day, the interest was as high as 1 billion star coins. However, the pawn shop hoped that Raela would not be able to repay the money, because the market value of the 6 spaceships was about 40 billion star coins. With the 10 billion star coins from the pawn, Raela's heart was beating. He found the Xiumo family, and added another 2 billion star coins, and found 4 of the strongest war slaves in the death training camp. There could be no mistakes in the next battle. Chapter 328 Gambling. With the arrival of the second day, the final battle of the bet is finally about to begin. Because the series of fierce battles in this bet are so exciting, The Golden Hotel has set up arena number 3, which can accommodate 30,000 people. The fighting stage is a circular fighting stage with a diameter of 20 meters. This shows how much the hotel attaches importance to this battle. Rayala's face is pale and his eye sockets are sunken. He has not closed his eyes for a day and a night, and he is barely supported by various potions. If the game is not held in the morning, he would probably have died by the evening. Amid the noise of the stadium, the host began to announce the lineup for today. Today, the 4 top fighters will challenge the evil Terami people who we hate so much. The host was full of malice towards Yugo. After all, Yugo's victory yesterday made him lose a lot of money. The first contestant to appear today is the legendary war slave who has won 180 games, Bear Exploder Bellamy. From his nickname, we can see how ferocious this guy is. Yes, you heard it right. It's bear explosion instead of bear violence. This guy really hugged a female bear in the fighting arena a few years ago. The atmosphere at the scene was boiling. At this time, a big man was seen walking slowly in the center of the venue. He was about 2.2 meters tall, almost naked, with long hair on his body, and a long messy hair draped over his shoulders. When he opened his mouth, he was full of big yellow teeth. The body odor on his body made people unwilling to get within a radius of 5 meters of him. This was probably the important reason why no one wanted to buy him. His weapon was a solid alloy short stick as thick as an ordinary adult male's arm, which was carried on his back. This man was very strong, and it was more than enough to cut him open and stuff Yugo in. In his left hand, he held a basket with several roast chickens in it. He would grab a roast chicken from time to time, and with just a few bites, only bones would be left. The host then introduced the second contestant to appear today is Bloodclaw Diawaf. This cruel executioner who loves to drink human blood, his favorite thing to do is to cut open the opponent's throat and taste the blood. He has won an amazing 196 victories. Today, Hugo is afraid that he will die under his blood claws. Thunderous cheers broke out again at the scene. At this time, a small figure suddenly appeared on the fighting stage, but he stood very far away from Bellamy with disdain. This man was wearing a black tights made of polymer material, and the gloves on his hands were a special weapon, the blade claw. This weapon is very strange and fierce, and is very suitable for those who are fast and agile. The blade claw has many functions. First, each blade claw has 3 blades that can lock other people's weapons. Second, the front of the blade claw will tear off a piece of meat as long as it passes through the human body. Furthermore, the back of the blade claw is also a sharp blade, which can easily cut the opponent's skin. Diawaf is not tall, only about 1.7 meters tall. His eyes are cold like a venomous snake staring at Yugo across the venue, and he licks the blade of the blade claw from time to time. In his opinion, Yugo is already a dead man. The host continued to introduce the remaining 2 players are the 2 instructors of the Zumo family's death training camp, Xiu Yan and Xiu. They are both legendary figures in the entire Golden City Hotel. They are both mythical figures who have won more than 500 games in the death arena. It is said that no one has survived under the joint efforts of the 2 of them. Therefore, today Yugo's winning odds are 10.23, and the odds of the 4-person team winning are 1.32. Please pick up your payment card and place your bet as soon as possible. This time, the excitement in the venue reached its peak, and their topics and attention were all focused on the 2 brothers Xiu Yan and Xiu. These 2 brothers are legendary war slaves of the Golden City Hotel. The 2 brothers were bought by the Zumo family when they were very young. They were gifted and soon stood out in the death training camp. Zumo, the patriarch of the Zumo family, saw that they were indeed talented and adopted them as his grandchildren. Xiuyan's best weapon was a single knife, while Xiu's weapon was a sword. The 2 brothers have won more than 500 games in the death fighting arena. If they join forces, their fighting power will double. They are identical twins. Identical twins, or monozygotic twins, are a fertilized egg produced by the combination of a sperm and an egg. This fertilized egg splits into 2 to form 2 embryos. Because they come from the same fertilized egg and receive exactly the same chromosomes and genetic material, they are of the same gender and look like they came from the same mold. Sometimes even their parents can hardly tell them apart. Some scientists have conducted experiments to cultivate identical twins separately. The results of the experiment show that identical twins grow up in different environments and still have very similar environments and experiences. It proves that 50% of the factors that determine a person's personality are innate genetic genes. Moreover, identical twins have telepathy. Especially after humans discovered the way to cultivate mental power, they found that the telepathy of identical twins was constantly amplified as the level of mental power increased. The higher the mental power, the stronger the induction between the twins. This is the case with the two brothers Xiu Yan and Xiu Yu. When the two of them joined forces to fight the enemy, everything the other party saw and thought would appear in their minds. The two of them thought like one person, so when fighting the enemy, they cooperated closely and were invincible. Xia Xingchen frowned off the court. He instinctively felt that these two people were not easy to deal with. Now the two of them hugged their shoulders, their weapons were hung around their waists, standing at the edge of the field, smiling at the situation on the field. It seemed that they did not want to participate in the siege of Yugo so early. They wanted to observe and evaluate Yugo's strength first. This is the style of master. At this time, no one noticed that an old man with grey hair and beard quietly slipped into the most luxurious private room in the arena. Yugo walked onto the arena. He was wearing a white combat uniform today. He still had two beloved daggers on his waist, a Ningfeng sword on his back, a small round shield in his left hand, and an alloy short spear in his right hand. He was fully armed. The host announced the start of the countdown. The yellow lights on the field began to flash, and the bulletproof glass wall in the middle of the field began to slowly fall. Xiu Yan and Xiu Yu still stood there without moving. Bellamy also stood there without moving, because he had not finished eating the roast chicken in his hand. In his opinion, the roast chicken was more attractive to him than the blue-skinned monster on the field. Only the blood-clawed Dianuf slowly walked towards Yugo. Dianuf came in front of Yugo and began to shake the blade claw in his hand and began to circle around Yugo. His footsteps were very light and almost no sound could be heard, but every muscle in Dianuf's body tensed up. He was looking for an opportunity to launch a fatal blow. Chapter 329, Gambling. The fourth ultimate gambling match began. Blood-clawed Dianuf slowly circled around Yugo, while Xiu Yan, Xiu Yu and Bear Exploder Bellamy watched the excitement with interest. These people all had their pride, and they were not used to 4 against 1. The most important thing was that in their opinion, Yugo was not worth their siege. Dianuf's steps were very gentle, with a special rhythm. He was observing. His way of attacking would bring great pressure to the opponent. Once the opponent panicked, or lost patience or vigilance, it was time for him to quickly launch an attack, and he would kill the opponent in 1 or 2 moves. Looking at Dianuf in front of him, Yugo thought of a creature on the planet Furu, the terrifying cat. As the name suggests, this is a terrifying big cat, with a black body and shiny fur. They live in the forest, and their claws are their weapons. This animal is very good at lurking and tracking, and always gives prey a fatal blow unexpectedly in the deep forest. However, the biggest feature of the terror cat is that when it finds that it has been detected by its prey, it will constantly use the surrounding natural environment to create various noises and tense atmospheres, so that the prey will realize that danger is around. This will cause panic and psychologically collapse first, and then the terror cat will suddenly rush out and kill the prey. Dianuf's movements and attack methods are exactly the same as those of the terror cat, but Yugo is not afraid. For thousands of years, the Terami people have countless ways to deal with terror cats. He just needs to do it. Thinking of this, Yugo actually closed his eyes. The audience off the court were shocked. They thought Yugo didn't want to live. But what they didn't know was that Yugo thought Dianuf was a terror cat. Dianuf felt that this was an opportunity. He rushed out from the left front of Yugo in an instant, and his claws flashed. 6 cold lights grabbed Yugo's throat and abdomen respectively. With a loud duong sound, Dianuf felt that both hands were numb, and a huge force came from the blade claws. Then, a sharp pain came from his abdomen. He then realized that a short spear had pierced his abdomen, and following the short spear came a twisting force, which was ruthlessly tearing his internal organs. Ah! With a shrill scream, Dianuf fell out, with a short spear stuck in his stomach. Because the speed was too fast, no one saw what happened at that moment. At this time, the monitor above the audience seats in the arena played the footage shot by a 400-fold high-speed camera. Bellamy quickly pounced on Hugo, and Hugo just raised the shield in his hand forward to block the attack of the blade claw. Before Bellamy could notice what was going on, the short spear in his right hand had already pierced out from the edge of the round shield. Because the round shield blocked his sight, Bellamy could not detect this move at all. Moreover, the short spears used by the Terami people had spearheads that were even wider than human swords. This is because they often fight with huge monsters, and if the spearhead is too thin, it cannot cause enough damage to the prey. Moreover, after Hugo inserted the short spear into his abdomen, he habitually turned his wrist, and the spearhead slid around his abdomen like a scraper, shattering Diaf's internal organs, and it looked like he was dying. Hugo stepped forward and pulled out the short spear. The audience below the stage was boiling again. Some were cursing, some were cheering, and some were worried about their own wallets. But none of this could have any effect on Hugo. At this time, Bellamy, the bear exploder, finally finished the roast chicken in his hand and burped with satisfaction. He raised his hand and threw away the basket in his hand, holding the iron rod in his right hand, and strode towards Hugo. He was tall, with long legs and arms, and his speed was not slow at all. He came close in a few steps, and without saying a word, he smashed it with a stick. This stick made a sound of wind, and there was a black light on the stick. Hugo understood that this was a fighting skill. Although he had a shield in his hand, he didn't dare to use it to block the stick, because he knew that Bellamy's stick was too powerful, and it could damage the mecha, even if it hit the mecha. Hugo's shield was made of a special alloy. Although it would not be broken, if he blocked the stick, the body under the shield would be seriously injured. Hugo dodged calmly. He always kept in mind the wisdom of the Terami people. When facing a monster stronger than you can't fight it head on. You must deal with it calmly. Bellamy's iron stick had no rules, just rushing and hitting hard. This was his way of fighting. Even if the opponent was lightly touched by his iron stick, he would suffer considerable damage. Who knew that the alien in front of him was so cunning? He didn't fight you head on, but used his speed advantage to move around. After a few minutes, Bellamy stopped, a little out of breath. He consumed a lot of energy. The roast chickens he had just eaten were completely digested. His arms and legs were long, and his attack range was large, but for the very agile Hugo, he couldn't even touch a hair. Hugo could even keep observing the movements of Xia Yan and Xia while avoiding his attacks. Seeing Bellamy stopped, he even took the initiative to approach Bellamy and tried to attack him to irritate him. Hugo used a guerrilla tactic. For thousands of years, the Terami people knew the benefits of this tactic in their fights with wild beasts. Later, Hugo read a lot of military books. Thousands of years ago, a famous military strategist on Earth summarized guerrilla warfare into 16 words. If the enemy advances, we retreat. If the enemy stays, we harass. If the enemy is tired, we attack. If the enemy retreats, we chase. Hugo was surprised to find that these 16 words were perfectly integrated with the experience they had summarized for thousands of years. Now, Bellamy was tired, and Hugo began to attack and harass him, not letting him recover his strength. Bellamy, the bear blaster, was indeed a simple-minded guy. He was enraged again, and continued to chase after him with his iron rod. Another 10 minutes passed. Bellamy was sweating profusely, and his physical strength had reached the critical point. However, due to the heavy sweating, the sour smell on Bellamy's body emanated, almost filling the entire arena. The brothers Xia Yan and Xia covered their noses and hid further away. Hugo couldn't stand the smell anymore and prepared to launch a counterattack. Bellamy rushed up again and followed him 3 or 4 meters behind. Hugo suddenly turned around while running and threw the short spear in his hand straight to Bellamy's face. Bellamy dodged by tilting his head. He was very happy. This blue-skinned monster seemed unable to escape. He threw the weapon in his last struggle. Seeing that the spear didn't hit, Hugo threw the small round shield in his left hand again, but this time the angle seemed to be very biased, and the shield flew out by brushing Bellamy's ear. Bellamy was already very tired at this time. A serious decline in physical strength would cause a person to lose concentration, which was the case with Bellamy now. He only saw the shield coming, but did not notice that there was a silk thread connected to the handle of the shield. Chapter 330 Gambling. Yugo and Bear Exploder Bellamy fought together. Yugo threw the round shield in his hand, and Bellamy dodged it, but his physical strength was seriously reduced, and he could not maintain a high degree of concentration. He did not notice that there was a black silk thread on the handle of the round shield. After entering the space age, humans discovered various cosmic creatures on various planets and even in space. Among them, there is a creature that grows on some asteroids in space and feeds on various metal minerals. Surprisingly, the living habits of this creature are very similar to those of silkworms on Earth, so people on Earth call them Xia Xingchen. When silkworms change from larvae to adults, they will spit out a 600-900 meter long silk to form a cocoon, wrapping themselves in the cocoon to complete their evolution. Xia Xingchen is almost the same. It's just that they don't eat mulberry leaves, but various minerals, and spit out a special alloy wire, which people call Xia Xingchen silk. This alloy wire is extremely tough. An alloy wire as thin as a hair can withstand a tensile force of 20 tons, and is not afraid of being hurt by sharp weapons. Now, one end of this Xia Xingchen silk is connected to the handle of the round shield, and the other end is connected to a special alloy ring on Yugo's finger. The small round shield flew behind Bellamy, and stopped moving forward under the pull of the Xia Xingchen silk. Yugo's fingers exerted a little force, and the round shield actually flew backwards, and the Xia Xingchen silk on it wrapped around Bellamy's neck. Bellamy felt that the situation was not good, and stretched out his hand to grab the silk thread. Yugo exerted force with his left hand, grabbed the silk thread, and pulled it hard, and Bellamy's head and several fingers were cut off. The huge head fell to the ground, and blood spurted more than 2 meters high. Then there was a loud bang, and Bellamy's huge body fell to the ground. Yugo's Xia Xingchen silk was bought by Xia Xingchen at the Death Star Sea Hotel. Xia Xingchen thought this thing was magical, so he gave it to Yugo. This silkworm silk is 4 meters long, as thick as a hair, and is wrapped around an alloy ring. This alloy ring is hollow, just enough to hold the silk thread, and prevent the user from being cut. Yugo studied human culture and martial arts, and found that in ancient times, people on Earth used thin and tough silk threads as weapons. The area of the silk thread is very small, and the pressure exerted on such a small area is very huge, like a blade. On the internet, you can often find videos of people riding bicycles, or using magnetic hoverboards being cut by kite lines, not to mention this tough silkworm silk. Bellamy was caught off guard. His death shocked the entire mecha arena. The audience exclaimed. Only Xia Xingchen and others jumped up happily. He felt very accomplished that he gave Yugo the silkworm silk on the spot. Yugo pressed the alloy ring in his hand, and the silkworm silk was automatically retracted by a small town device, and wrapped around the groove on the alloy ring, and the small round shield returned to Yugo's hand. At this time, Xiu Yan and Xiu Yu came over. As the eldest brother, Xiu Yan spoke up. Yugo, you are very strong and a worthy opponent. However, you will soon see what real strength is. But before we start, I suggest that we pause for a while and deal with these 2 piles of smelly garbage on the field. He was referring to the bodies of Bellamy and Dawaf. Yugo nodded. Great minds think alike. Not only were the bodies of the 2 blocking the way on the stage, but the blood, flesh, and heads made the ground very slippery, especially the stench of Bellamy who never took a bath. Yugo really couldn't stand it. The 3 of them walked back to the passages where they appeared. At this time, the chief referee of this competition also heard the 3 people's demands from the microphone on the scene, so the game was suspended. Dozens of cleaning robots came up to clean up the bodies, cleaned the blood on the ground with high pressure water guns, and blew the ground clean with blowers. After cleaning the field, the 3 people appeared again. At this time, the scene was silent. The game reached the most tense and final moment. Due to the large-scale betting by the audience, this match was related to the lives and property of countless people. Xia Xingchen was very nervous. He felt that the 2 brothers on the stage were very difficult to deal with, and he was very worried about Yugo's safety. The fat man Raider on the opposite side was so nervous that he was about to die. He didn't expect that 2 very powerful war slaves would be so unbearable. But he was very glad that he was so wise. It turned out that the night before, Rayla's heart became more and more uncertain, so he made up his mind and directly took out 4 billion star coins and invited the brothers Xiu Yan and Xiu Yu to play a game for him at a cost of 2 billion star coins per person per game. In other words, the 2 billion per person was not the price to buy them, but the commission for asking them to play a game on their behalf. Because of their outstanding performance and strong strength, Xiu Yan and Xiu Yu, the Xiumo family has terminated the slavery relationship with them and returned them to freedom. But in return, the two are now instructors in the death training camp and continue to help the Xiumo family train war slaves. Once the Xiumo family has something to do, the two of them must stand up and help the Xiumo family. The staff of the Golden City Hotel cleaned up the two bodies and bloodstains on the stage, and the final showdown between Wu Jie and the two brothers Xiu Yan and Xiu Yu from the Xiumo family finally began. Xiu Yan's weapon is a nearly 1 meter long thick-backed machete. The blade is black, and you can faintly see a red glow. This is because the fire ore was added to the blade when it was forged. Xiu Yu's weapon is a 1 meter long sword with an antique style. The texture of the sword looks like jade. This sword is called the Hanyu sword, which is carved from a precious ore, Hanyu. This kind of Hanyu is extremely strong and has an amplifying effect on the cold ice system. Brother, let me go first. Xiu Yan saw that Wu Jie was strong and was eager to try. The knife is the courage of 100 weapons. It is one of the most important instruments in Chinese martial arts on the ancient earth. From ancient times to the present, people who practice martial arts use knives the most and have also summarized many knife routines and formed many knife schools. Although the saber techniques of different schools have their own characteristics, they also have some common points. First, saber moves are heavy and fierce. Compared with swords, saber techniques are more open, with fewer changes, but no less power. Second, single saber techniques depend on the hand. Double saber techniques depend on the movement. In saber techniques, the hand that is not holding the saber and the footwork are extremely important. Xiu Yu nodded, and Xiu Yan raised his saber and chopped. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 331 Gambling. Xiuyan's swordsmanship is extremely fierce. He used a move to split Ocean Mountain with force and chopped down with both hands. Wu Jie held the Ningfeng sword with both hands and swung it up with his forearm as the axis, sweeping it from bottom to top. Ningfeng is also a heavy sword, and Wu Jie's strength should not be underestimated. There was a loud noise in the air, and the place where the two swords intersected was full of fire, and the two huge forces attached to the swords also collided. A shock wave in the air spread out in all directions from the place where the two weapons intersected. Xiu Yu, who was standing more than 10 meters away, had to use his skills to resist such a shockwave. Xiuyan's pupils suddenly shrank. He was a little shocked and even a little scared. Now his hands are numb and the muscles in his arms are slightly cramped, while Wu Jie on the opposite side looks fine. What was even more terrible was that the weapon in his hand, the precious sword Lai blade that could cut iron like mud, was actually broken into a mung bean-sized gap, which made him very distressed. Lai blade was given to him by Xiumo when he was learning martial arts from him. Teacher Xiumo told him that as a warrior, he should cherish his weapon and make sure that if the sword is alive, the person will die. This precious sword has cut off countless weapons over the years, but it was broken by the unknown black sword on the opposite side. Xiu Yan knew that his strength was far inferior to that of the opponent, and his weapons were not advantageous, so he could not fight head-on. But he was a human being, and could use combat skills. Xiu Yan used his ultimate move, Fire Wind Sword Technique. This is a fire-based martial arts, and Lai Blade has the effect of amplifying fire-based sword techniques. Xiu Yan's sword technique was extremely sharp, and the sword was drawn at an extremely fast speed. There were bursts of sword energy at the blade, and the sword energy was accompanied by bursts of fire. Wu Jie responded very calmly. He was not good at using a sword. He did not know much about the complete sword techniques. Even if he had seen them in books or videos, he could not master them. He just kept dodging with his body movements and occasionally raised his sword to block. For a while, he looked dangerous. 20 minutes passed in a flash, and the two were still unable to do anything to each other. At this time, Xiu shouted, "Brother, I will help you." Xiu was watching the battle from the side. He found through telepathy that his brother's physical strength was about to reach its limit. Once Xiu Yan's sword technique slowed down, its power would be greatly reduced, and it would be dangerous at that time. However, he was still very upright. He did not sneak attack, but shouted to remind his opponent. This can also be regarded as the pride of a warrior. Xiu Yan's sword fell with flames. Wu Jie just dodged it, and a white sword light wrapped in cold air pierced his lower abdomen from a very tricky angle. Wu Jie blocked it with his sword, but the move had just been used, and the fierce blade sword had already slashed towards his neck. Wu Go ducked again, but before he could finish his move, a white sword pointed at his hamstring. Xiu's sword was called the Cold Jade Sword, which was made of a special cold jade, or in the universe, it had a bonus effect on ice-related skills and abilities. The two brothers, one ice and one fire, had telepathy, and they worked together perfectly, like one person. Often, when Wu Go dodged one person's moves, before he could finish his moves, the other person's attack came from an angle that made him very uncomfortable. Often, one person's attack was a trap, forcing Wu Go to do relevant evasive actions, but the other person's attack came quietly. Wu Go was in a panic, with several bloody scratches on his body and some burns on his skin. But Wu Go did not give up. The more times like this, the calmer the Terami people were. This was their trait. Suddenly, Wu Go remembered what he had learned during training on Xia Neo and Star a few months ago, including a very special move, Teikai Sword. Teikai Sword is an important part of Teikai martial arts. It has the characteristics of both Teikai and swordsmanship. On the one hand, it should be like Teikai, showing lightness, softness, continuousness, and emphasis on intention rather than force. At the same time, it should also show a graceful and unrestrained swordsmanship style of swordsmanship with clear swordsmanship on both form and spirit. At first, Teikai Sword was just a sport. Later, several master-level martial artists applied it to actual combat, and the effect was obvious. However, it must reach a certain level before it can be used, so it is not widely circulated. Now, it is time to use this move. Wu Jie cheered up and continued to deal with the attacks of the two. Finally, the opportunity came. Xiu stabbed Wu Jie's throat with a sword. This sword was merciless. Wu Jie raised his sword to meet the Cold Jade Sword. With a flick of his wrist, he cleverly used her entanglement technique. The Cold Jade Sword was tightly entangled. Wu Jie took advantage of the situation to move to the side, and the tip of the Cold Jade Sword stabbed to the side. At this time, Ziyuan was raising his sword to chop at Wu Go, but before he knew it, Ziyuan's sword suddenly appeared and stabbed him in the lower abdomen. Ziyuan was so frightened that he quickly changed the path of his sword and slashed at the Hanyu sword that was stabbing at him. The Liren sword and the Hanyu sword collided violently. Because Ziyuan slashed with all his strength in a very dangerous situation, Ziyuan's right hand was numb and the sword in his hand almost slipped out of his hand. At this time, Wu Go twisted his sword and the tip of the Ningfeng sword was already on Ziyuan's neck. Ziyuan and Ziyuan stood there, as if they were cast into a fixed body spell, at a loss. As long as Wu Go's wrist moved slightly, Ziyuan would be killed on the spot. The scene was silent and people were stunned. Who could imagine that the two brothers who had an absolute advantage just now fell into this situation in an instant? They also knew that once Ziyuan was killed, it would be difficult for Ziyuan to kill Wu Go on his own. At that time, they would lose. At this time, in the most luxurious private room in arena number 3, the old man suddenly stood up and slapped the armrest of the mahogany chair with one palm, smashing the entire hard mahogany chair to pieces. However, something happened that stunned everyone. Wu Jie actually took back the Ningfeng sword, stepped back a few steps, and said, "You two didn't sneak attack me just now, so I don't want to hurt you. In return, let's continue the fight." Xiu Yan and Xiu looked at each other with great emotion. The two of them clasped their fists and said, "Mr. Wu Jie, thank you for giving in. We admit defeat. This, Xiu Yan and Xiu brothers have admitted defeat, so the winner of this game is Wu Jie, the Terami warrior from Furuxing. Chapter 332 Victory. The scene exploded again. Several people died on the spot, and dozens of people had ruptured blood vessels and heart attacks, and needed to be rescued. They all bet heavily on the 4-man team. No one was optimistic that Hugo would win. In this gambling fight, more than 90% of people bet heavily on the 4-man team to win. Rayla saw this scene in the private room, and spurted out a mouthful of blood. He knew that he was completely finished. All his large and medium-sized spaceships were mortgaged, and now they belonged to others, and he could only sell the remaining slaves and slave hunting teams in his hands, as well as most of the real estate. He was no longer a slave trader who could command the support of everyone, and if he wanted to stop and become a rich man, he had to ask his enemies whether they would agree. The men were busy rescuing him, and the medical staff gave Rayla 2 more injections of cardiac stimulants. This fat man was really huge, and the injections had to be enough for 2 people. After a long time, he slowly woke up. At this time, Xia Xingchen followed the 2 mediators into Rayla's private room. Mr. Rayla, you lost. Now is the time for you to fulfill your contract, Xia Xingchen said with a smile. You must have cheated. I don't accept it, Rayla shouted. Whether you accept it or not is not up to you, Mr. Rayla. Xia Xingchen shrugged. He had long guessed that this fat guy must be like this. A mediator next to him couldn't stand it anymore and sank his face. Mr. Rayla, are you questioning the fairness and professionalism of our hotel? Have you forgotten the rules of our Golden City Hotel? This was said calmly, but murderous. No, that's not what I mean. I will fulfill the agreement immediately. The mediator's words made Rayla almost wet his pants. In the past, there were also people who wanted to quibble and default at the Golden City Hotel, but now they have become the faces of alien insects. Come here, bring Yanma here. Rayla hurriedly ordered his men. Soon, 2 of his slaves came over with a stretcher. The person lying on it was Yanma. She was still weak after using the berserker potion. In order to punish her, Rayla did not give her food or nutrient solution for 2 days. Yanma was dying at this time. One of Rayla's personal bodyguards brought a portable safe and put it on the table. Rayla supported himself and stood up. He opened the safe with 3 verifications: key, fingerprint, and iris. There were thousands of keys in it. Rayla looked at these keys and felt a lot of emotions in his heart. It won't be long before these things will not belong to him. But in order to survive, he can only sell all these slaves. He tremblingly picked out the key belonging to Yanma and put it on the table in front of him. Xia Xingchen took the key and inserted it into a socket of the slave collar on Yanma's neck. The key beeped and the green light on it flashed. The slave collar was opened. Xia Xingchen put the key in the collar into his pocket. In fact, this was just to hide his identity. The collar had been put into his personal mecha space. Rayla's men also handed over the documents of selling Yanma, and Xia Xingchen signed them. Seeing Yanma's physical condition, he was a little worried and asked Xiaolin, "Is there a doctor in the Golden City Hotel?" Xiaolin nodded. "Of course, Boss Axing. As long as you have money here, you can enjoy the best medical services in the entire Northern Empire, even if you want to replace organs and internal organs. In fact, the medical level of Gemini is very high, because there are a large number of slaves here, which means there is an inexhaustible source of human organs." Soon after, several medical staff came to the private room and took Yanma away. She was taken to the medical center of the Golden City Hotel, where there are various advanced medical equipment. Xia Xingchen was a little worried, so he asked Keeley and others to take care of her, leaving only 1K and Xiaolin by his side. Soon, the 5 billion star coins that Rayla lost to Xia Xingchen were deposited into Xia Xingchen's account, but at this time he was indifferent to the money, because the bets they got from betting on Hugo to win far exceeded this number. "Thank you for your generosity, Mr. Rayla," Xia Xingchen said, then turned and left. Rayla spit out blood again and fainted. The medical staff immediately rescued him, and the cardiac injection was useless. Xia Xingchen came to the lounge behind the arena as soon as possible and saw that Hugo had finished the game. He took off his coat and a staff member of the Golden City Hotel was treating his wound. "Hugo, how is it?" Is the injury serious? Xia Xingchen asked with concern. It's okay. It's a minor injury. It will heal in a day or two. How is Yanma? This is what Yugo is more concerned about. Xia Xingchen held his hand and patted his shoulder. Rayla has handed Yanma over to us, and I have taken off her collar. She is free now. It's just that she is still weak after using the berserk potion. We have sent her to the medical center of the Golden City Hotel. Keeley and others are taking care of her, so don't worry. Xingchen, thank you. After treating the wound, Yugo changed into another set of clothes. The original one was already scarred. Several people were about to go out. At this time, several security personnel of the Golden City Hotel came over and said, Mr. Axing, Mr. Yugo, because of your victories, a large number of people have suffered heavy losses and even lost their fortunes. The hotel has specially sent us to protect your safety in the hotel all day. Xia Xingchen nodded. Thank you. The hotel sent these security personnel specifically for them. On the one hand, it was because Xia Xingchen and his friends were guests, and it was their duty to ensure the safety of the guests in the hotel. On the other hand, it was because the hotel had made hundreds of billions of star coins from the opening of these games, and it almost bankrupted Rayla, who the hotel hated the most. Of course, the hotel had to perform well. In this way, under the escort of a large number of security personnel, Xia Xingchen and others returned to their rooms. Xiaolin, how do I go about redeeming you? Are you really going to redeem me? Xiaolin was nervous and excited, and a little skeptical. Because many guests often make empty promises to redeem their tour guides in order to make them serve them wholeheartedly, and it is not the first time that Xiaolin has been fooled. Xia Xingchen nodded. Yes, Xiaolin, you have helped me a lot this time, and I, a crossing, keep my word. Chapter 333 Sister Xiaolin. After the game, Xia Xingchen and Yugo and others returned to the room. Xia Xingchen asked Xiaolin how to redeem her. Xiaolin was very excited. Boss Axing, you just need to come with me to the hotel's service center to pay the relevant fees. The hotel will handle all the procedures and assign a tour guide to serve you. Let's go now without further ado. Half an hour later, Xia Xingchen and Xiaolin came to the service center of the Golden City Hotel. Xiaolin's redemption fee was 2.2 million star coins, which was considered very expensive among the hotel's waiters. After all, she was young, beautiful, and smart. The other waiters were very envious of Xiaolin. They didn't know how long they would have to endure before they could get out of the sea of suffering. Xia Xingchen took out his membership card and swiped it on the card reader at the service desk. Soon, a staff member brought Xiaolin's ownership certificate and the key to the slave collar. Xia Xingchen personally removed the slave collar for her. Xiaolin's eyes were filled with tears. Boss Axing, thank you. Xia Xingchen held her shoulder and said, Xiaolin, you are free now. Don't call me boss, call me brother. Thank you, brother Axing. Xia Xingchen was also moved. He vaguely remembered that he had a sister when he was very young, but later died of illness and malnutrition. There has always been a shadow of his sister in his heart, and now, Xiaolin in front of him has overlapped with that shadow. Brother Axing, please give me a name. Since I can remember, I have only had a code name and the name Xiaolin. Now I'm free, and can immediately go to the Administrative Management Center to register, and I have a new identity. Xiaolin's eyes were full of expectations. Xia Xingchen thought for a moment and said, then you can call yourself Xiaolin, how about it? Xiaolin, what a nice name. It's decided, my name will be Xiaolin from now on. But brother Axing, you can still call me Xiaolin. Xiaolin was very happy. Xiaolin, I wonder what your plans are for the future? How about I pay you to go to school and buy you a shop, and you can do some small business here? No. Xiaolin shook her head and said firmly, brother Crossing, take me away. I want to be with you. I want to stay away from this damn place completely. For every slave who escaped from Gemini, what is left here are nightmare-like memories. Okay, let's leave here together. Xiaolin, you will be my sister from now on. Xiaolin cried bitterly. These were tears of joy. On this day, she was finally free and had a brother who loved her. Xia Xingchen and Xiaolin returned to the room and found that Yugo and the others had returned. Yangma also came back and stayed in a room alone. Keela even specially invited back 2 medical staff to come and see her. She had just had a comprehensive physical examination, and except for hunger and weakness, she had no major problems. Nothing happened that night. The next morning, when everyone was chatting in the living room, someone rang the doorbell. Yugo went to open the door and saw that it was the 2 brothers Xiu Yan and Xiu Yu who came to visit. Xia Xingchen took the initiative to stand up and greet them. "I wonder what the 2 of you are doing here?" The 2 brothers Xiu Yan and Xiu Yu clasped their fists and bowed at the same time and said, "Mr. Axing, Mr. Yugo, our grandfather would like to invite you 2 to our house for a chat. It's nothing special. It's mainly to thank Mr. Yugo for not killing us. In addition, Grandpa noticed that some of Mr. Yugo's martial arts are very similar to those of his old friend, so we may have a connection. So I would like to invite you to your house to have dinner together as a thank you, and we can also have a good chat by the way. I wonder who your grandfather is?" "Our grandfather is the patriarch of the Xiumo family, Xiumo. He founded our family." "I see. Well, we will definitely visit you." More than 10 hours later, Yugo and Xia Xingchen followed the 2 brothers Xiu Yan and Xiu Yu, and they took a special elevator straight to the top floor of the Golden City Hotel, where a helicopter was already waiting. An hour later, the plane landed in a vast manor. Xia Xingchen was surprised, because the area of this manor seemed to be no smaller than the palace of Shinyuan Star, and it was also heavily guarded, with many facilities that looked like military camps. Several people came to a stone house that looked very simple. The house was about 200 square meters, and the whole house was made of stone and wood. The furniture and decorations in the house were also made of wood and various animal skins. This was a very unimaginable thing in the space age, because most of the materials used to build houses now are alloys and polymer synthetic materials. Such houses are outstanding in both strength and thermal insulation performance, but they do not have the elegance and heaviness that the house in front of them brings. Here, he met an old man. The old man had a red face, bulging temples, and a pair of eagle eyes as sharp as lightning. He had a ruddy complexion and a straight body, and looked like a middle-aged man in his 40s or 50s. When shaking hands with him, Xia Xingchen felt that his hands were strong and full of calluses. This was definitely a martial artist. The old man in front of him was the figure who would shake the ground 3 times when he stomped his feet in the entire Gemini. He was the patriarch of the Xiumo family, one of the 4 major slave trade families in Gemini, Xiumo. He looked very young, but he was actually 85 years old. Xiumo's ancestors had been engaged in the slave trade for generations. Originally, he had no interest in this at all, and just wanted to be a powerful warrior. When he was young, he traveled around the Milky Way, looking for warriors from various planets, learning from them, and competing with them. He himself was even a B-level mecha master. Later, Xiumo's father was attacked by his enemies during an interstellar journey, and died in space. Since the slave trade would offend countless enemies, once their family fell into decline, they would be wiped out. Their enemies would not miss this great opportunity. In desperation, Xiumo had to give up the pursuit of the ultimate martial arts, and took up the family business alone. He was resolute and ruthless to his enemies. After years of struggle, the Xiumo family has achieved its current status. Their family has also changed from a little-known small family to the well-known Xiumo family today. Chapter 334 Origin. After introducing each other and exchanging pleasantries, everyone sat down. The servants closed the thick wooden door and left. The chairs were all redwood chairs shipped from the distant earth, and in the middle of the room was a redwood tea table carved from a whole piece of wood. Xiu personally made tea for several people. Come, let me show you some tea leaves from earth, roasted in the ancient way. This tea has traveled across most of the Milky Way to get here, and it is absolutely precious. Xiumo greeted Xia Xingchen and the others enthusiastically. Looking at Xiu's smooth tea making movements, Xia Xingchen and Wu Jie were amazed. The tea ceremony helps us warriors cultivate our sentiments, abandon distracting thoughts, and improve our state of mind. Xiumo explained to Xia Xingchen and the others. The tea ceremony is a way to appreciate the beauty of tea. The tea ceremony is also regarded as a living art of brewing and drinking tea, a life etiquette with tea as the medium, and a lifestyle of self-cultivation with tea. It is a very beneficial and beautiful ritual through brewing tea, appreciating tea, smelling tea, drinking tea, enhancing friendship, improving one's mind and cultivating virtue, learning etiquette, and appreciating traditional virtues. Drinking tea can calm the mind and spirit, help cultivate sentiment and remove distracting thoughts. The spirit of tea ceremony is the core of tea culture. The tea ceremony originated from an ancient civilization with a long history on the earth, and later it spread all over the world. After humans entered the space age, the tea ceremony was brought to the entire Milky Way. However, because the earth is too far away, tea is a beverage that is expensive and only those truly wealthy families can afford it. After all, it has to cross most of the Milky Way to be transported. Xia Xingchen picked up the teacup, and a refreshing fragrance rushed into his nostrils. Take a sip gently, it is silky and refreshing. Good tea, good craftsmanship. Although he doesn't know how to drink tea, and doesn't understand the tea ceremony, Xia Xingchen also likes this different taste very much. He decided to buy some tea leaves and tea sets. Xiumo went on to say, fortunately, the two brothers have been exposed to the tea ceremony in recent years, and have made some progress in their mentality. Otherwise, in the arena yesterday, the two brothers would have fought to the death with Wu Jie, even if they risked their lives. In that case, both of them would have died. As a warrior, although you must be brave on the battlefield, you must also have, or and die for a good cause. It is really not worth dying for some emotional disputes in the ring. Once again, I would like to express my gratitude to Wu Jie, the hero. Wu Jie clasped his fists. You are welcome, old man. When I first came on the field, Xiuyan and Xiuu did not take advantage of me. Even when the two of them joined forces, Xiuu shouted to remind me instead of a sneak attack. I'm very grateful to him. Didn't the ancestors of your human race say that, if someone respects me 1 foot, I will respect him 10 feet? Xiumo, Xiuyan and Xiuu were very surprised. They did not expect that this alien was so proficient in human traditional culture. In their eyes, aliens were uncivilized barbarians, and there was only the law of the jungle in the alien social structure. Xiumo smiled and said, my two friends, if I'm not mistaken, you are not Zhuang's nephews at all. After hearing what he said, Xia Xingchen and Yugo secretly became alert. Although they remained calm on the surface, they were still very nervous. This is the Northern Empire. Once their identities are exposed, no one can escape. This time, Xia Xingchen came to the Northern Empire with a fake identity, that of the nephew of Zhuang's family. There are dozens of S-class mecha masters in the entire Galactic Empire, and Zhuang is one of them, and the most low-key one. He is a child adopted by Mr. Zhuo Lehong as a retainer. He has been engaged in the test driving and evaluation of Mechas in the Tang Dynasty group, and is also an intermediate mecha repairman. Zhuang is a very low-key person. Although he is outstanding in strength, he has no feats and deeds that defy the heavens, and he is unwilling to communicate with others. He is a complete taciturn person, and people don't know much about him. So this time Xia Xingchen borrowed the name of the nephew of Zhuang's family. No one knows how many nephews and sons Zhuang's family has. Now there are big families everywhere, and if you ask Zhuang, he will admit that he has such a nephew. Mr. Zhuo Lehong has already explained the situation to him, and made a greeting. All less class mecha masters are not paupers, so no one would doubt Xia Xingchen's identity as a second generation or third generation rich man. Even if someone wants to investigate, they can only find out that Zhuang is behind him. There is an S-class mecha master's grandfather backing him up, so any force that wants to touch Xia Xingchen must weigh their own weight. Although the Milky Way is large, it is not difficult for an S-class mecha master to find you and destroy your entire family. The atmosphere at the scene suddenly became solemn. Xiumo after this. Xia Xingchen, my friend, if I'm not wrong, you should be related to the Qin family. Qin Xianqi, Qin Dili, and Qin Ren should have a deep connection with you. Why do you say that, old man? Xiumo stroked his beard and said, I have watched all of Wugo's fights. When fighting against Jiangma, Wugo used Teikai, an ancient martial art from Earth. And the winning sword that Wugo used against my two grandsons yesterday, using the opponent's force to counterattack, was obviously Teikai swordsmanship. Old man, Teikai and Teikai swordsmanship have a long history. There are at least tens of millions of people practicing it in the Milky Way, Xia Xingchen explained. My friend Crossing, you can't say that. Teikai has developed into hundreds of schools. The three brothers of the Qin family are all martial arts masters, and their Qin-style Teikai is a school of its own. And many of the moves in the Teikai used by Mr. Wu Go are Qin-style Teikai. Xia Xingchen raised his head, took a sip of tea, calmed himself down and said, "Old man, the three you mentioned are the chief martial arts instructors of the largest military academies in the Galactic Empire. Their students are all over the world, and the same goes for Teikai. It's not surprising that they know Qin-style Teikai. If Teikai can spread everywhere, then what about Teikai sword? This is the secret of the Qin family. For thousands of years, Teikai swordsmanship was only theoretical and used for performances. Later, the three brothers of the Qin family improved the Teikai sword. Qin's Teikai sword is the first Teikai swordsmanship that can be truly applied in actual combat. However, since Teikai swordsmanship requires a very high level of martial arts skills from the user, the three Qin brothers did not spread it. Because rashly using this swordsmanship that they cannot control is playing with the lives of martial artists. When I was young, I learned martial arts everywhere and practiced Teikai with a Teikai master on earth. At that time, this teacher taught 4 disciples at the same time, namely me and the 3 Qin brothers 20 years ago. I passed by Shiniu and Star and visited the 3 of them and had a discussion with them. Who knew that they had already developed the Qin Teikai, which is powerful, suitable for actual combat, and has a very personal style, and also launched a unique Teikai swordsmanship. You can't hide your swordsmanship from me. Chapter 335 Xiumo Secret. Xia Xingchen clasped his fists and said, "The old man is indeed very insightful. Yugo and I are fortunate to receive personal guidance from Qin Ren. Because his identity is so special, we have to be careful when we come to the north, so I hope you can understand." Xia Xingchen did not admit or refute, but just said that he had learned martial arts from Qin Ren, which is a very normal thing among martial artists. "So that's the case, my friend. Please rest assured. Although I'm in the Northern Empire, my heart is in the Galactic Empire. And Nicholas, this bastard, has an irreconcilable hatred with me." Xia Xingchen was even more surprised when he heard it. "Crossing, my friend, do you know that 20 years ago, there were only 2 major families in Gemini, not 4 major families," Xiumo said. It turned out that more than 20 years ago, there were only 2 major families in Gemini, the Xiumo family and the Omaha family. These 2 families were powerful and monopolized the slave trade of the entire Gemini. At that time, the Chen family and the Tequila family could not be called families at all, but just 2 powerful slave traders. In order to realize his ambition, Prince Nicholas had to expand his army and prepare for war. And expanding the army and preparing for war required money. And how could he let go of such a big gold mine as Gemini? So Nicholas stretched his claws to Gemini. Since Gemini had been run by the Xiumo family and the Omaha family for many years, Nicholas did not want to be too ugly and did not use force to seize. He began to foster agents. The Tequila family was an agent fostered by the Nicholas family. On the other hand, the Chen family colluded with the Korovin family and intervened in the business of Gemini in another way. As a result, the Chen family and the Tequila family gradually rose. The Golden City Hotel was the idea of the Korovin family. They wanted to have more influence in Gemini and turn paradise into a den of money. But the Chen family did not have such financial resources, so they forced the Xiumo family to invest. Xiumo did not want to wade into this muddy water, but under the tyranny of Nicholas, no matter how powerful a businessman was, he would not have a good end if he went head to head with the ruler. So he compromised. Nearly 70% of the funds for the entire Golden City Hotel were provided by the Xiumo family, but they could only get 25% of the benefits. Not long after, something even more terrible happened. Xiumo's 3 sons, grandsons, and granddaughters died in various accidents and assassinations over the past decade. Although it was later found out that it was indeed his enemies who did it, there was one thing that puzzled him. Their family had a large number of war slaves and a very strong security force. How did his enemies hurt his family through heavy protection? Later, Xiumo finally figured out the joints. The black hand behind this was Nicholas. His heirs died one after another. If one day he also encountered an accident, then the entire Xiaomo family would be annexed by the Chen family and the Tequila family, and then all his wealth would be in Nicholas's pocket. The reason why the Xiaomo family was targeted was because of their death training camp. The powerful force of the Xiaomo family was comparable to that of a small army. On the other hand, the wealth accumulated by Xiaomo over the past few decades was enough to equip a small fleet. A man is innocent, but he is guilty of holding a treasure. As for the Omaha family, their patriarch, old Omaha, was very perceptive. He took the initiative to show goodwill to Nicholas and offered half of the family's savings to support Nicholas in expanding his army and preparing for war. He also promised that 70% of the Omaha family's profits would be given to Nicholas in the future. Moreover, the Omaha family's businesses were all about small profits and quick turnover, and there were a lot of messes. Nicholas was unwilling to spend more energy. He just wanted to get the money with peace of mind. The Omaha family is now actually a vassal of Nicholas. After listening to Xiaomo's story, Xia Xingchen had fallen into a petrified state. He then asked, "Old man, what are you going to do? Are you going to swallow this breath?" As he said this, Xia Xingchen looked around carefully, with his inside skills fully activated, searching for eavesdropping devices. Xiaomo saw his concerns and said, "My dear R-Crossing, please rest assured. I'm absolutely safe here. I'm confident in this. There are no eavesdropping devices here. Today, I said this, and it stops here. I have no other intentions. I just want to reassure you. Now that I have seen through it, Nicholas does not want me to have any more heirs. I can only pass all my mantle to these two adopted grandsons. I chose them because of their character. Although they both came from the death training camp and killed countless people, their hearts and natures are good. They kill only to survive, nothing more. I hope you two can get closer to Xiu Yan and Xiu Yu and make friends. You are a similar age and strength, so you should communicate more. As the saying goes, more friends mean more roads, and more enemies mean more walls." Xia Xingchen clasped his fists and said, "Please rest assured, old man. Yugo and I are very willing to get closer to the two Xiu brothers. In that case, you should stay in Gemini for a while longer and let them take you around. But please rest assured that, if you follow Xiu Yan and Xiu Yu, no one will dare to trouble you in Gemini. Thank you, Mr. Xiumo. Thank you for your help, brothers." Xiumo continued, "I can see that you two have very high attainments in martial arts. Since you come to my place, I can't be too stingy. If you two don't mind my low martial arts skills, I have a few tricks to teach you. Just consider it as a gift from me. What do you think?" Xia Xingchen and Wu Zhe met the great slave trader Xiumo at the Xiumo family's manor. He was also a martial arts master. After a conversation, the two found that they had a very close relationship, and Xiumo also told Xia Xingchen their own secrets. Then, Xiumo offered to teach Xia Xingchen and Wu Zhe a few martial arts, and Xia Xingchen and Wu Zhe were very moved. The guidance of a martial arts master is better than years of hard work on their own. Several people came to the back of the house, where there was a martial arts training ground of more than 200 square meters. The ground was paved with flat bluestone, and there were neatly arranged sword and gun racks on both sides of the training ground. It was already dark at this time, and soft lights were on around the training ground. There were so many lights that the training ground was illuminated like daylight. Xia Xingchen stood up gratefully, clasped his fists and bowed. "Old man, you are too modest, and I'm very grateful." Chapter 336, Heartwarming Palm. They came to the middle of the martial arts arena and stood still. Xiumo waved his hand. "Come on, Xingchen, you come and attack me with all your strength. I want to see your strength. Is this appropriate?" Xia Xingchen was a little embarrassed. "Boy, how much strength did you use when you fought with Qinren? All your strength? Then you should use all your strength against me too. My martial arts skills have not fallen behind in these years. Although I dare not say that I'm much stronger than the three brothers of the Qin family, I'm definitely not worse than them." Xiumo was full of confidence. Xia Xingchen clasped his fists and bowed. "Then it is better to obey than to be respectful. Old man, please be careful." As he said that, Xia Xingchen launched a fierce attack on Xiumo. He has now mastered the 36 styles of the tiger, and the whole person is like a tiger coming down the mountain. The brothers Xiu Yan and Xiu Yu, who were watching the battle, cheered in unison. They thought they were not capable of reaching the level of Xia Xingchen. Xiumo also nodded secretly. It is indeed a rare talent for such a young warrior to have such skills. However, with Xia Xingchen's current skills, he can't do anything to him. Boy, you haven't used your full strength yet. Don't worry, my old bones are not that useless. Okay, old man, watch me. Xia Xingchen exerted force in his hands, and used his strongest move, the air-breaking hammer. For a moment, the chopping palm was like a knife, the cannon hammer was like a meteor and lightning, and the storm kick was like the wind, attacking Xiumo one move after another. Xiumo's face became solemn, and he had to take the boy in front of him seriously. However, the level of Xia Xingchen and Xiumo was still too different. After adapting to his offensive rhythm, Xiumo quickly turned the situation around. The two fought for nearly 20 minutes. Xia Xingchen was already sweating profusely, but Xiumo was still at ease. Boy, I'm going to use the moves I'm about to teach you to deal with you, so be careful. Xia Xingchen responded to him with a cannon hammer. Xiumo dodged it easily, and then suddenly bounced up, and kicked Xia Xingchen's vitals. Xia Xingchen was frightened out of his wits and quickly retracted his moves, sitting back. Then, he was surprised to find that Xiumo stretched out two fingers, and stabbed them directly into his eyes. Xia Xingchen was in a tragedy. In just a short while, he was kicked in the crotch, grabbed his breasts with dragon claws, dug his eyes, stabbed his ribs, and pulled his balls. At their current level of martial arts, encountering such a thing is like encountering a nightmare. He didn't expect that Xiumo, with such a high level of martial arts, would use such a lowbrow move. This was clearly a move used by street thugs in a fight. Finally, Xia Xingchen was not careful, and watched Xiumo's two fingers stab into his eyes again, but this time, he had no spare energy to dodge this move. Fortunately, Xiumo showed mercy, and retracted his move when his fingers were still 1 centimeter away from his eyes. At this time, Xia Xingchen was already sweating profusely, with hot sweat and cold sweat just flowing down. There were several benches on the sidelines. Xiumo pulled Xia Xingchen to sit on the bench. Xiu Yan and Xiu Yu handed them both dry towels. A crossing. What do you think of the trick I used against you just now? Xia Xingchen was speechless. He really didn't know what to say. Xiumo continued, axing, your martial arts, as our martial artists say, have already achieved some success. It is very difficult to improve in the short term. Only by continuous practice, striving to enhance your skills, and then constantly accumulating and improving in daily combat and training, after a few years or more than 10 years, you will have an epiphany one day, or suddenly become enlightened in a life and death struggle, and then you will reach a higher level. If you encounter an opponent of the same level or an opponent who is slightly stronger than you, it will be difficult for you to defeat them easily. So I want to teach you a set of unique and unexpected martial arts, which is the set of moves I used just now. I named it the heartwarming palm. The so-called heartwarming palm is to make the opponent uncomfortable, making them feel heartbroken or even angry. Don't think that I use moves that are despicable and contemptible in the eyes of ordinary people. But on the battlefield, killing the enemy and saving yourself at the lowest cost is the real kingly way. Xia Xingchen nodded. What the old man said is very true. There is no problem with this. There is no noble or despicable on the battlefield, and there should be no benevolence and morality on the battlefield. Xiumo nodded and smiled. You are a teachable young man. There is no fixed routine for my heartwarming palm kung fu, but each move is to attack and rescue, and to catch the opponent by surprise. It can be used together or alone. Imagine that you are using your extremely powerful martial arts to beat your opponent, and make him tired of defending. Suddenly, you use this move. It is difficult for the opponent to adapt, and he will definitely be in a mess. That is your chance to win. Now, I will tell you in detail. This talk lasted for nearly 2 hours. Xia Xingchen's understanding ability surprised Xiumo. He actually mastered the heartwarming palm completely. And Wu Jie, who was watching from the side, had almost mastered it. Seeing that it was getting late, everyone left the martial arts arena, and Xiumo prepared a sumptuous dinner. Xia Xingchen and Wu Jie were not polite, and the group toasted and exchanged cups, and had a great time. During the dinner, Xiumo suggested that Xia Xingchen and Wu Jie stay with him for a few more days. He was surprised at Xia Xingchen and Wu Jie's learning ability. He originally thought that it would be great to teach them a kung fu in 2 or 3 days. But seeing their learning ability and understanding, Xiumo planned to teach them more. Who wouldn't like such students? Xia Xingchen and Hugo readily agreed. First of all, the opportunity to be taught by such a martial arts master is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. A martial artist like Xiumo can give him a few tips, which is better than his own years of hard training. In addition, Yang Ma is still recovering, and they can't leave to do other things. What's more, the gambling craze has not passed, and there are many people who are trying to make trouble for him and Hugo. They should be allowed to calm down. So Xia Xingchen contacted Keeler and others with his personal terminal, explained the situation, and reassured them. The day after Xia Xingchen and Rayla's gambling fight ended, in another manner on Heaven Star, there was a secret reception room where 4 people with gloomy faces met secretly. This is the manor of Chen Ziguan, the head of the Chen family, one of the 4 major families in the Gemini slave trade. Chapter 337, The Conspiracy on Gemini. Inside the house, the black-haired man in his 50s sitting in the main seat was Chen Ziguan, and the blonde man sitting next to him was Fermi Korovin, a peripheral member of the Korovin family and Chen Ziguan's son-in-law. As for the remaining 2 people, a small old man with a mature look and dark skin was the patriarch of the Omaha family, fake Omaha, and people called him Old Omaha. The other man sitting quietly in the corner, with small eyes, a wretched expression, and looking like a yellow-skinned monkey, was the patriarch of the Takeda family, Takeda Yushin. Fermi Korovin had a gloomy face. He was the representative sent by Nicholas to Gemini. He traveled back and forth between Korovin and Gemini every month, and his main task was to collect money. Nicholas's agents in Gemini had to accurately present large sums of money every month. Fermi Korovin placed a special payment terminal the size of a brick on the table. Because personal payment cards have a limit, the maximum limit of funds for each card cannot exceed 1 trillion star coins. This kind of payment terminal has no limit on the amount. The other 3 people in the room took out their payment cards, inserted them into the payment terminal, entered the numbers, and completed the transaction. Among them, Chen Ziguan handed in 3.5 trillion star coins, Old Omaha handed in 1.5 trillion star coins, and Takeda Yushin handed in 1.2 trillion star coins. In a short time, a total of 6.2 trillion star coins entered the payment terminal. Fermi Korovin was responsible for sending the money back to Korovin. Fermi Korovin looked at the numbers displayed on his personal payment terminal, and his face became more and more ugly. Why is there 1 trillion less star coins this month than last month? How can I report to His Majesty? He is Nicholas's loyal lackey, and in his eyes, the few people in front of him, including his father-in-law Chen Ziguan, are his dogs. Due to the serious accident at Northern Heavy Industries, Nicholas has to rebuild the Mecha laboratory, and the construction of the remaining 2 heavy space carriers has reached a critical moment. Now is the time to spend money like water. For 3 consecutive months, the fees paid have been decreasing by 100 million star coins per month. You can imagine how angry His Majesty will be. If he is not satisfied with me, he will replace another special commissioner, who will not be as easy to talk to as me. After hearing this, several people nodded like crazy. Lord Fermi, we will find another way. You know, the tourism industry and slave income have dropped by 60% to 70% in the past few months since the war. The 3 of us have already handed over 90% of the profits. We have to leave us a way out. And take our Golden City Hotel as an example. Although we can barely maintain a high income, a lot of it comes from the gamblers who gather here. The gamblers whose wealth was emptied by usury are here, so we can fully maintain the current level of income. But now, there are fewer and fewer gamblers, and the hotel's business is getting worse and worse. On the contrary, the war slave business of that old guy Xiumo is getting better and better, which makes people jealous. Chen Ziguan said tremblingly. He knew that his daughter was just a plaything of this Fermi Korovin. He never regarded himself as a father-in-law. He, Chen Ziguan, can use the name of the Korovin family to bully others, but if he disobeys the Korovin family, they will crush him like a stink bug. HMPH. Anyway, I've said this. You guys take care of yourself. I hope that next month, the income you hand in will increase significantly. As for that old guy's Yumo, HMPH. He stood up, threw down a threatening word, picked up the payment terminal on the table, and turned away. Old Omaha smiled bitterly and said, Xia Chen, your son-in-law is really awesome. If my son-in-law talks to me like this, I will definitely sell him to Takeda-kun to make a specimen. Takeda Yashin on the side also nodded. Yes, I wish for it. I will definitely give Mr. Omaha a good price. Chen Ziguan smiled bitterly. If I really disobey him, I will be the one sold to Takeda-kun. You should know that this Fermi has more than 50 wives and countless lovers. For the Korovin family, women are just playthings and reproductive tools. At this time, Takeda Yashin became excited. If I want to sell Mr. Chen, I will make you into human sashimi and pair it with the best sauces shipped from Earth. It will definitely sell well. There are many people on Gemini who want to eat Mr. Chen's flesh. Takeda's words were very sincere, and his face was sincere. It was impossible to tell whether he was serious or joking. Mr. Takeda is joking. Chen Ziguan resisted the urge to kill him. He really didn't dare to offend this sinister and cunning Japanese man, because his backer was Emperor Nicholas the Great. As for growth next month, your Chen family should have no problem. After all, your Golden City Hotel has made a net profit of 800 billion star coins in gambling money just from the opening these few days. Plus you are lending at high interest rates. You can squeeze out more than 100 billion this month. I really envy you for having the Golden City Hotel as your cash cow. Old Omaha's tone was sour. Chen Ziguan smiled bitterly. Even if we can barely get by next month, what about the month after that? How can we grow? The appetite of our Emperor Nicholas is getting bigger and bigger. Besides, this time, the gamblers suffered heavy losses. Compared with 3 months ago, there are 80% fewer gamblers willing to spend a lot of money in casinos and death arenas. We will lose money next month. Our Chen family is not as rich as your Omaha family. Oh, by the way, who are the Terami man and his master who are gambling? I heard that they were called away by the boys of the XIU family today. Most likely, they went to see the old guy's Yumo. Omaha was very curious. Chen Ziguan was very disdainful of this. That you go. His master is called Axing, a rich second generation from Chang'an Star. He got an Aurora spacecraft to do smuggling to make some extra money and seek excitement. His uncle is Zuo Wang, who works in the Tang Dynasty group. Zuo Wang is a retainer of Zuo Liheng, the master of mecha design in the galaxy. It is said that Zuo Wang dotes on his nephew very much. Some people also say that our crossing is Zuo Wang's illegitimate son. The mecha of Yugo is very expensive, and only Zuo Liheng has such superb technology to design such a mecha. But Zuo Wang is very low-key and doesn't want to meddle in other people's business. We just need to not provoke his nephew. Takeda Yashin and old Omaha both nodded in agreement. It is not a wise choice to provoke an S-class mecha master. Chen Ziguan continued. I know my son-in-law's character very well. What he said before he left shows that he has set his sights on the old guy's Yumo. If I'm not mistaken, he will definitely make suggestions to the Korovin family and prepare to take action against the Yumo family. But the old guy's Yumo is not so easy to deal with, and he will definitely fight to the death. The Korovin family will suffer heavy losses. We will wait and see what happens, and then we can get a share of the pie. The Korovin family has always wanted to directly intervene in the slave trade of Gemini, so it would be good to teach them a lesson. Yes, I'll listen to you, Xia Chen. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 338, Killing the Master with Random Punches. The early morning sun on Heaven Star was warm and gentle, shining on the body. After breakfast, Wu Jie and Xia Xingchen were already practicing the heartwarming palm in the open space outside the villa where they lived. That night, the two of them spent their time meditating and thinking about how to use the heartwarming palm. Xiu Yan and Xiu Yu did not expect the two to be so diligent, and they were even more shocked to see how proficient they were in using the heartwarming palm, as if they had practiced it for many years. Back then, the two of them were very diligent, but they were forced to do so under the pressure of facing death at all times. But the diligence of the two people in front of them was spontaneous. The two brothers looked at each other and said, "Brother, younger brother, we should also work hard." Several people came to the wooden house, where they were yesterday again, and paid their respects to Xiumo. Then they went to the martial arts arena together. Xiumo first asked Wu Go and Xia Xingchen to demonstrate the heart-wounding palm he taught them yesterday. As a result, Xiumo was completely conquered by their performance. He only knew that Xia Xingchen was a genius, but he never thought that Wu Go was so amazing. Not only did these two people fully master what he taught them, but they also integrated it with their own martial arts and styles. Learning martial arts is definitely not just about doing it exactly the same and everything will be fine. The most important thing is to master it. Xiumo applauded. Xia Xingchen and Wu Go retracted their moves, and Xiumo said to Wu Go, "Come on, Wu Go, attack me with all your strength." "Sorry, old man." Wu Go clasped his hands together in salute, then launched a swift attack. Wu Go's martial arts were very interesting, mainly based on the martial arts of the Terami people, but in the middle it incorporated many different schools and types of martial arts. Wu Go's fighting style was ferocious and swift, yet also imaginative and varied. He also incorporated a lot of sinister moves from the heart-piercing fist, and even Xiumo took a long time to adapt to it. This time Xiu Yan and Xiu Yu were even more silent. If they were fighting with bare hands, the two of them tied together would not be Wu Go's opponent. This time they were completely convinced. The two fought for more than 30 minutes, and even Xiumo was a little convinced. Wu Go's moves had not been repeated for such a long time, which showed how complicated his learning was. "Wu Go, be careful, I'm going to make a move." Before he finished speaking, Xiumo, who had been mainly on the defensive, suddenly changed his tactics. He clenched his fists and suddenly attacked Wu Go without thinking. Xiumo concentrated all his strength on his fists, but he did not use his full strength, but used strength that was about the same as Wu Go's strength. His fists hit Wu Go like a storm. These punches hit Wu Go's flesh, his arms, and even his legs. Moreover, each punch was real or fake, without any pattern. Sometimes when Wu Go made a move and swung his arm to block, the fist would suddenly be retracted, causing Wu Go to miss. Sometimes the fist would hit his arm hard, and the whole arm would be numb. Moreover, as long as he could hit him, regardless of whether it was a vital point or not, Xiumo had only one principle, which was to rush and hit hard. Moreover, this punch was only the simplest, most violent, and fastest straight punch, without even a hook or a swing. Wu Go was stunned and accidentally hit in the face. Wu Go instantly lost his balance. In the next moment, he was hit by more than 10 punches and was finally knocked to the ground. The brothers Xia Xingchen and Xiu Yu, who were watching the fight, were all stunned. Xia Xingchen knew Wu Ge's strength, and he might not be Wu Ge's opponent in a life and death fight. Xiumo reached out and pulled up the knockdown Wu Ge. He looked a little embarrassed, but there was excitement in his eyes. "Old man, what kind of skill is this? It's so special." Xiumo smiled. In ancient times on Earth, there was a proverb called "random punches kill the master." This has an allusion. A boxer who had just learned martial arts returned and had an argument with his wife, who was eager to try. The boxer thought to himself, "I have learned martial arts, so why am I afraid of you?" Unexpectedly, before he could get into a posture, his wife had already rushed up with her teeth and claws bared. In a few seconds, she beat him so badly that his nose and face were swollen that he could not move. Afterwards, others asked him, "Since you have learned martial arts, why did you lose to your wife?" The boxer said, "She didn't punch according to the moves, how could I defend myself?" This is of course a joke. The boxer suffered because he was not good at martial arts. But this story also gives us many inspirations. There has long been a saying among the people that a random punch can kill a master, which means that if everything is out of order, even the master can't resist. The so-called random punch here refers to not following rules and regulations, rushing around randomly, and hitting by mistake. It includes things that do not follow common sense, winning chaos, and hit the target by accident. So my set of skills is also called random punch. There is only one basic move of random punch, that is, straight punch. Because the straight punch is the fastest. Use the fastest speed, great power, violent blows, and unstoppable momentum to make the enemy hurt and afraid. There is no fixed routine or rule for the landing point of the punch, which will completely disrupt the opponent's judgment and offensive rhythm. But although there is no rule or method, there are still tricks. For example, when attacking, the main thing is to hit the soft and painful parts of the enemy, such as acupuncture points, ligaments, cartilage, joints, etc. Even if the opponent blocks, the punches should land at the same place as much as possible, causing cumulative damage to the opponent. In addition, the purpose of the punches should be to disrupt the opponent's balance first. Xiumo explained the essentials and precautions of the random punch to Xia Xingchen and Wu Zhen in detail. Xiu Yan and Xiu beside him were jealous. Xiumo had not even taught them this move. After Xiumo finished explaining, he turned around and saw the two adopted grandsons with shining eyes. He slapped them on the head. "Are you two bastards jealous? Grandsons don't dare." Xiumo glared at them. "Don't you dare? Don't I know you two? The reason why I don't teach you is that this move has very high requirements for the user. In addition to the high requirements for skills, experience, the most important limiting factor is physical fitness. The random punch has very high requirements for the user's strength, speed, endurance and physical strength. You two brothers, speed, physical strength and endurance are no problem, but your strength is far behind Wu Jie and A Crossing. If you don't have enough strength, you won't be able to hurt your opponent, and you won't be able to suppress him. Then your opponent will see that this set of boxing is full of flaws. So teaching you this will harm you." Xiu Yan and Xiu clasped their fists and bowed. "Grandson, I'm grateful for your teaching." Chapter 339, Yama wakes up. On Heaven Star, in the martial arts arena in the Xiumo family manor, Xiumo was teaching Xia Xingchen and Wu Jie several martial arts. He taught Wu Jie and Xia Xingchen two very special martial arts, the chaotic punch and the heart-piercing palm, and the two benefited a lot. During the break, everyone sat on the bench next to the martial arts arena and chatted. Xiumo suddenly asked, "Axing, what weapon are you best at?" "Old man, I prefer to use a sword." "Then do you have a weapon that suits you? How about I give you one?" "Old man, no need, I have my own weapon. The Ningfeng sword that Wu Jie used that day is my weapon." Xia Xingchen replied. "Oh, I heard Xiu Yan say that the sword broke his Li Blade sword. Then I won't show off my skills. None of the swords I have collected can compare to yours. How about this? I will teach you another set of swordsmanship." "Thank you, old man." Xiumo asked Xiu to fetch two ordinary swords, handed one to Xia Xingchen, and said, "The swordsmanship I'm going to teach you is called Piaoxuhan sword. Watch carefully." Xiumo turned his body, and the sword energy in his hand flew. Xia Xingchen and Wu Jie recognized that this was the swordsmanship used by Xiu in the fourth bet match that day. However, this same swordsmanship is not as powerful in Xiumo's hands. This Piaoxuhan sword is a swordsmanship with an ice effect. There is also a special internal skill method that can transform the internal power into cold air to drive the swordsmanship, which can double the power. One of the characteristics of Piaoxuhan sword is that the sword is swift and the attack angle is tricky and vicious. And with the ice key, it can freeze and kill the opponent. Xia Xingchen first learned sword moves from Xiumo, and then Xiumo taught him a set of internal skills. In the end, he personally taught Xia Xingchen the moves. But Wu Jie was depressed because he couldn't use this set of internal skills at all. He could only watch and remember the sword moves silently. In order to compensate him, Xiumo taught Wu Jie a martial art that can only be used with two daggers as weapons, the broken gold art. This martial art has no special requirements for internal skills, but is just a clever technique of using strength. Wu Jie was very happy. This was exactly what he wanted. There are very few martial arts specifically for daggers, and this martial art is dedicated to daggers and is powerful. Soon it was evening, and it was time for dinner. At this time, the communicator in Xia Xingchen's hand rang. Xingchen, Yanma is awake, but she is very unstable, and we don't speak the same language. She is very frightened now. You and Hugo should come back soon. Keela was on the other end of the communicator, and he looked helpless. Xia Xingchen had no choice but to say goodbye to Xiumo and others. Xiumo arranged for a helicopter to take Xia Xingchen and Hugo back to the hotel. When they returned to the hotel suite and walked into the living room, they found that the room was in a mess, with furniture and decorations overturned all over the floor. Several people were there. 2 medical staff were sitting on the sofa. One of them had a swollen face, and the other medical staff was bandaging him, while Xiaolin was saying something to a room. Keela stood beside Xiaolin with full vigilance, and Baum and Julian were also there looking at each other helplessly. Xia Xingchen and Hugo walked to the door of the room and looked inside. Yanma had woken up, but she was curled up in the corner, her body in a defensive posture, and because she was still very weak, her body was trembling slightly. She looked wary and distrustful. Seeing this, Hugo separated the crowd, took off the dagger on his body in front of Yanma, handed it to Xia Xingchen, then walked into the room and closed the door, leaving everyone in the room looking at each other in bewilderment. What's going on? How did it become like this? Keela waved his hand and shrugged. She suddenly woke up, and the medical staff came up to check on her. As a result, she started to fight and punched the doctor in the face. Fortunately, she has not recovered yet, otherwise the medical staff would not have survived. Then Yanma rushed to the living room and tried to escape, but was stopped by Keela. The two fought in the living room. She is very weak now and can't beat Keela, so she retreated to the corner of the room and was on guard, which is what she looks like now. Xia Xingchen patted his shoulder. Thank you for your hard work. Then Xia Xingchen called a new female tour guide sent by the hotel. She was 24 years old and graceful. Since Xiaolin had been redeemed, she was arranged to serve Xia Xingchen and others. Hello, sir. My name is Xiaoli. What can I do for you? Xiaoli, right? Do you have a suite with more rooms? Yes, Mr. Crossing. Our Golden City Hotel also has a conference suite with 10 rooms. There are still vacancies. Xiaoli looked at the electronic terminal in her hand and said, then prepare one for us. We will move in now. This room will be reserved for us tomorrow. Xia Xingchen ordered. Yes, Mr. Crossing. Xiaoli took Xia Xingchen's VIP card and turned away. Soon, the room was ready. Xia Xingchen asked Xiaolin and Julian to pack up and move to the new room, and he would wait here. He also asked Keela to check the new room carefully to confirm that there were no bombs or eavesdropping devices. Xia Xingchen came to the 2 medical staff again and asked them about the condition of Yanma. The doctor said that Yanma's body was fine and she would be fine after a few days of rest. Xia Xingchen expressed his gratitude and took out a few star coins, about 100,000 star coins, and gave them to the 2 medical staff as tips and compensation. This is a windfall in Gemini. The 2 medical staff thanked them profusely. 2 hours later, the door opened and Hugo walked out. A Terami girl snuggled tightly in Hugo's arms. Her face was still very nervous. Yanma, this is Xingchen, my master and my savior. He was the one who decided to save you. He is as close to me as a brother. Yanma didn't know human language yet, so Hugo introduced him in the Terami language. Yanma forced a smile with difficulty. With Hugo's patient persuasion, Yanma finally let down her guard. She even didn't believe that she had escaped from the sea of suffering, but now, her dream has come true. Yanma still has an impression of Hugo, not just because they are both Terami people. On the ring, when she was controlled by the berserker potion and was about to turn into a killing demon, Hugo appeared. He did not hurt her, but stopped her with superb martial arts. After she woke up, she was full of hesitation about everything unknown. It was Hugo who appeared in time to comfort her and tell her the ins and outs of everything. Being with Hugo, she had an unprecedented sense of security. Yanma decided to follow Hugo forever and never separate. Moreover, all her people were killed, and she had no relatives in this world. Moreover, according to the standards of the Terami people, Hugo was tall, mighty and handsome, and Yanma was also at the age of falling in love. She also had a little affection for Hugo. Xia Xingchen took the 2 of them to the new suite and introduced Yanma to everyone. When allocating rooms, Yang refused to have her own room and insisted on living together. Yugo readily agreed. He also liked Yang very much. So under the strange eyes of everyone, the two Terami people entered the same bedroom. Seeing this scene, Baum said that he would set up a bomb to blow up the dog-abusing couple, and Keeley and Julian agreed unanimously. It's just that they really misunderstood Yugo and Yangma. Although the two Terami youths were lying on the same bed, they did not do anything to reproduce, but instead taught Yangma the human language seriously. Chapter 340 Target, Hellstar. Yangma finally escaped from the sea of suffering, and Yugo was very happy. But Yangma decided that she would never leave Yugo again. The two lived in the same bedroom, but they did nothing. Yugo spent most of the night teaching Yangma to learn human language, and they fell asleep at dawn. The next morning, Xia Xingchen found Xiaoli. The Golden City Hotel had a special tailor. Xia Xingchen gave the tailor a design drawing, which was the combat uniform designed by Yugo for Yugo on Shianyu and Star. He asked the tailor to measure Yanma and make some fine adjustments to the design to make the combat uniform look better and more suitable for Yanma. After breakfast, Xiaolin and Xiaoli took Julian, Baum and Wang Ke out to play, and Xia Xingchen gave his VIP card to Xiaolin. Baum was going to the market to find some materials for making bombs. For safety, the hotel also sent them 4 bodyguards. Yugo continued to teach Yangma to speak human language in the room. At breakfast today, Yangma called out everyone's name and learned common words such as please, thank you, no, yes, etc., which made everyone look at her with new eyes. Xia Xingchen discussed the next action with Keeley. He first told Keeley what happened between him and the grandson of Xiumo in the past few days, and also explained the relationship between Xiumo and the Northern Empire. Xia Xingchen was very thoughtful and frank, just not wanting to cause suspicion and estrangement among his companions. I'm really sorry that you have wasted so much time on my and Yugo's private affairs. Xia Xingchen felt very embarrassed. Xingchen, you are being too formal. We are partners, and your business is my business. Besides, no matter whether what Xiumo said is true or not, it is a fact that you and Yugo have become stronger. It is good for us to have a powerful partner like Yanma. Besides, our actions are to gather intelligence and cause sabotage. We don't have a specific action plan and we have to rely on improvisation. From another perspective, if what Xiumo said is true, then we will have a powerful ally here. As the saying goes, sharpening the knife does not delay the chopping of wood. And according to the information I know, what he said is very likely to be true. Keeley shrugged to indicate that it was okay. Xia Xingchen asked, where did you get your information? The website of the assassin organization. My master was also a king of assassins in the Northern Empire. Although the local area network of the Northern Empire is not connected to the Skynet of the Galactic Empire, there are still a large number of assassin organizations in the Northern Empire. Of course, the assassin organization is not just based on killing. This is a huge industry, including target tracking, intelligence gathering, weapons transportation, and arranging aftermath. It has long formed an industrial chain. Moreover, my master and I have a high level of assassins and authority, so we can obtain the most valuable intelligence. Of course, this intelligence is also valuable. I bought a lot of intelligence about the 4 major families and the Korovin family here from different assassin organizations, and found that the 3 families have formed a small alliance with the Korovin family. They are Nicholas's running dogs, and Xiumo is a thorn in their eyes. In the past month or two, the bounties on important members of the Xiumo family have increased, and there is also intelligence that Nicholas is very dissatisfied with the current income of Gemini, so they are very likely to start with the Xiumo family. Combined with what Xiumo said, what he said should be true. The two sides are already full of contradictions and are about to meet each other in battle. However, the armed forces of the other 3 families are not the opponent of the Xiumo family, so I analyze that the Korovin family and Nicholas are likely to intervene militarily. Xia Xingchen pondered for a moment. If I'm not mistaken, this time there will definitely be that mysterious mecha unit participating in the war. The mecha unit is most suitable for participating in this kind of mission. Then what should we do? First, organize the intelligence you got and give it to brothers Xiu Yan and Xiu, which is also a favor to them. In addition, this will allow the Zumo family to be prepared. Even if they are attacked, the Northern Empire will have to bleed heavily. Second, we have more people now. I plan to buy another spaceship. It just so happens that I made a small fortune this time. Buying a spaceship is enough, and then adding some slaves with professional skills. If we have 2 spaceships, we can do more things. Third, we have to go to Hellstar as soon as possible to see if it can cause the slaves to escape a riot. There is no large space fleet here now, and Nicholas is afraid of the consequences. He will definitely be in trouble. Fourth, let Baum find a way to blow up some important facilities on Gemini, such as the space station, nuclear fusion power plant, etc., so that the entire Gemini is paralyzed. Fifth, I'll let you go find a way to assassinate the key figures of the other 3 families and try to create chaos. Okay Xingchen, let's do it. Xia Xingchen and Keela discussed the next action plan. Then the 2 of them acted separately, each doing their own job. Keela sorted out and modified the intelligence on the 4 major families at hand, so that Zumo and others could extract intelligence that someone wanted to harm the Zumo family, but would not reveal Xia Xingchen and their true purpose from these intelligence. This is really a technical job. Xia Crossing then connected to Xiu's personal communication terminal. Xiu Yan and Xiu had a clear division of labor, and they also introduced their division of labor to Xia Xingchen in detail. The intelligence work of the entire Zumo family was the responsibility of Xiu, and the main armed forces of the Zumo family were led by Xiu Yan. Xiu received the intelligence data packet sent by Xia Xingchen, opened it and looked at the contents, and was shocked. Crossing, where did you get your intelligence from? I bought it from a friend of my uncle, who is an intelligence dealer, and specializes in selling intelligence to assassin groups. We are new here, and are not familiar with the local situation. We bought some intelligence from him. Combined with what Mr. Xiumo told us that day, I vaguely feel that someone is going to attack your family. Brother Crossing, I'm very grateful for your kindness. Your intelligence is too important. I will report it to Grandpa immediately. After hanging up the call, Xiu carefully read the intelligence again. In order to verify the accuracy, he contacted several assassin groups in Gemini and spent money to buy some intelligence. He confirmed that Xia Xingchen's intelligence was correct. He hurriedly called Xiu Yan, and the 2 met Xiumo together and handed over the intelligence brought by Xia Xingchen and the intelligence he had investigated to Xiumo. Chapter 341 Heading to Hellstar. Xiumo read the information carefully and remained silent. After a long time, he slowly said, it seems that our friend Crossing has a great background. He is not just an ordinary rich second generation. How about I send someone to check him carefully? Xiu frowned. No need, everyone has secrets. Since Crossing doesn't want us to know now, he must have his reasons. You get along with him well, and when the relationship is in place, he will take the initiative to tell you. What if he has impure motives and has some purpose? Wouldn't the family be in danger? Xiu thought a lot. He must be responsible for the safety of the Xiumo family. Intelligence work is a heavy burden and cannot be sloppy. Xiumo said confidently, if I'm not wrong, Crossing's enemy is the same as ours. He has no reason to be our enemy. You mean, the Galactic Empire? Xiumo nodded and admitted, I like this child Crossing very much. He is very sensible. Sharing intelligence with us is a great gift to us, and a goodwill to us. Grandpa, how should we deal with this? The mountain people have their own ingenious plan. The tellers at the Golden City Hotel were very efficient. By the evening, Yang Ma's combat uniform was ready. She changed into her combat uniform and stood shyly in front of everyone, and everyone applauded in unison. Yugo's combat uniform was white and dark blue, while Yang Ma's design uniform was red and white. Moreover, their combat uniforms came from the same clothing design drawing. The teller at the Golden City Hotel was very clever and skillful. She made a slight change to the original drawing, and Yang Ma's combat uniform and Yugo's combat uniform became a couple's outfit. Xia Xingchen was very satisfied with the tailor's craftsmanship. He took out 100,000 star coins as a reward and asked the tailor to make 10 more pieces according to the example and send them over. The tailor thanked him profusely. Not long after, Baum and the others came back, and everyone, including several bodyguards, brought a lot of things in large and small bags. There were even 2 carts outside the door, and the carts were also filled to the brim. These things were all bought by Baum, and all were sent to his house. Baum thanked everyone, and went into the house without coming out. The next morning, everyone had breakfast in the dining room of the suite. There is a delivery window in the dining room of each suite. Whatever the guests want to eat, they can order online by logging into the local area network of the Golden City Hotel on their personal terminal. Famous chefs from all over the Milky Way will personally cook the food according to the guests' requirements and deliver it to the dining room of each suite through a conveyor belt. After the meal, except for the tour guide Xia and the guide Wang, everyone else was there. Xia Xingchen expressed their idea of going to Hellstar to have a look. At this time, Baum walked back to the house. Not long after, he brought a large tray with more than 20 silver spheres. These spheres are made of metal with fine patterns on the surface. The diameter of the sphere is about 5 centimeters. What is this? Xia Xingchen was very curious. Baum smiled triumphantly. This is his masterpiece. For such a long time, he had watched his companions become powerful while he was doing nothing like a freeloader. He felt a little embarrassed and wanted to do something to prove himself. Now the opportunity came. Axing, we are going to Hellstar soon. There are still some dangers there. These 20 or so things are my masterpieces, called thunder bombs. Come and see. He picked up a thunder bomb, which had a groove less than 1 centimeter wide and a button the size of a small fingernail. This little thing is the safety of the thunder bomb. After pushing it aside, the safety will be opened. Then, as long as you pinch it with your hand, there will be a click sound inside, and you should throw it out immediately. The delayed explosion time of this thing is 4 seconds. The maximum killing radius is 10 meters, and the lethal radius is 6 meters. Its power is comparable to that of a grenade. I hope it can add a means of life saving for everyone. Baum explained to everyone how to use his treasure, which won thunderous applause from everyone. Keela took 4, Julian, Hugo and Yammer each took 2, while Xia Xingchen took 10 thunder bombs and quietly put them into his personal mecha space. This is a great weapon to save lives and create chaos. Then, Xia Xingchen contacted Xiu Yan and Xiu and told them about their plan to go to Hellstar. Axing, wait for us for a while, Xiu said, and then cut off the communication. Not long after, the 2 brothers appeared in Xia Xingchen's room. Axing, originally we brothers should accompany you to Hellstar, but you also saw the bounty order against us brothers and people related to our family and the intelligence. If you stay with us, it is very likely that you will be implicated. So I'm sorry, we must keep a certain distance between us in front of outsiders and pretend that we have no friendship. We can't let others see the relationship between us. I hope you can understand. Xiu's face was full of apologies, but he took out a black badge and handed it to Xia Xingchen. Crossing, this is what my grandfather asked me to pass on to you. All the industries of our family on Hellstar. As long as you show this badge, you can enjoy the best service and the lowest price. Of course I can understand. This is for our own good. Of course I can understand. Thank you both and Mr. Xiumo for your kindness. Xia Xingchen and others were preparing to go to Hellstar. After learning about this, the 2 brothers Xiu Yan and Xiu came to Xia Xingchen's residence in person and gave him a badge of the Xiumo family. With this badge, all the industries of the Xiumo family on Hellstar, as long as he showed this badge, he could enjoy the best service and the lowest price. Xiu shrugged. Crossing, you are being polite. Our Xiumo family has plenty of such slaves. I will just give you some. Xia Xingchen asked the 2 brothers Xiu Yan and Xiu. I want to buy some slaves, preferably those who can drive mechas and spaceships. To be honest, I made a small profit from this bet, and I want to get a medium-sized spaceship, but I'm unfamiliar with the place, and don't know where I can buy a suitable one. Xia Xingchen waved his hand. Brother Xiu, you are wrong. This time I came to Heaven Star. I was taken care of by Yuto and Grandpa Xiumo. The old man also taught me and Wujie martial arts. I have nothing to repay you. How can I have the nerve to ask for your things again? Besides, it is not easy for you to train these war slaves, and it costs money. And I really have no shortage of money. So, let's settle the accounts clearly. You just need to tell me where I can buy the best slaves. I must pay the money. I appreciate your kindness. Oh, by the way, I remember that there is a war slave trading center here in your Golden City Hotel. Chapter 342 Silver Moon Hotel. Xiuu took over the conversation, axing, you don't know that the slave trading center of our Heaven Star has inflated prices. Here, the value of slaves is raised very high through packaging and hype. Those fools with a lot of money are deceived. The slaves with truly high cost effectiveness and slaves traded in bulk are all in the slave training camp of Hellstar. There are also some outstanding slaves who are directly incorporated into the family's guards and army by our family. If you want to find outstanding war slaves, especially technical war slaves, you really have to go to Hellstar. Just go to our family's war slave trading center on Hellstar. Moreover, Hellstar has the largest slave trading market. Our 4 major families and almost all slave traders have shops there. It's not bad for you to go there and take a look. Xia Xingchen nodded. Thank you, two brothers. After Xiu and Xiuu left, 1K and Xiali also came, and everyone set off for Hellstar. Everyone carried various weapons. Xia Xingchen carried the Ningfeng sword on his back. Yugo still carried his 2 daggers and a composite crossbow on his back. Yang Ma carried 2 short swords, and Julian had 2 pistols on his waist. As for Keelan, although he was empty-handed, everyone knew that his windbreaker was full of various weapons for killing. Baum carried a large backpack on his back, and it was said that there were other messy things in it besides thunder bombs. Although her eyes were full of resentment, Xiali was left here to guard the door, because Xia Xingchen really didn't want to bring a burden with her. Xiali was powerless, and they had no spare energy to protect her. Everyone boarded the helicopter, and 20 minutes later, they arrived at the hotel's dedicated spaceport, and chartered a small space shuttle to fly directly to Hellstar. As soon as they left the spaceport, a large luxury maglev car was waiting there. Xiaolin had already booked a hotel room on Heaven Star, which was also a large conference suite and a single room. The single room was prepared for 1K. The car drove for more than an hour, and a spectacular building appeared in front of them again. The building is more than 200 meters high, and the exterior is covered with white material similar to jade. The entire building is more than 3,000 meters long. The widest part of the building is more than 1,500 meters, and the narrowest part is more than 60 meters. Looking down from the sky, the entire building is a crescent moon reflected in a rectangular pool. This is the landmark building of Hellstar, the Silver Moon Hotel. Xiaolin once again became a tour guide. She was trained on Hellstar and often accompanied guests here, so she is very familiar with this place. The Silver Moon Hotel was jointly funded and built by the 4 major families and the core of In family 8 years ago, each holding 20% of the shares. This hotel mainly provides catering and accommodation, and mainly serves those merchants who come here to buy slaves. Hellstar is a bit chaotic, and has poor infrastructure. But the location of this hotel is good, very close to the slave trading world, and it is safe and guaranteed. Nearly 90% of the merchants live here. The vehicle was getting closer and closer to the Silver Moon Hotel. Only then did people realize that there was a huge guardrail 2 kilometers outside the hotel, enclosing the entire hotel in the center. Inside the fence were flowers, green grass, corridors, benches and other facilities. These facilities were designed like works of art. The inside of the fence was simply a huge park. Outside the fence, it was another scene. Dilapidated roads, garbage, and sewage everywhere. Slave living areas like slums, slave training camps like concentration camps, and slave markets like prisons. On the road, you can often see ragged skinny slaves and bodies of slaves lying dead on the street. This is why this place is called Hellstar. The car drove into the main entrance of the hotel, and a group of people got off the car. A well-mannered middle-aged man in his early 50s was waiting there. Hello, Mr. Axing. My name is Yuwen, and I'm one of the secret persons in charge of the Xiumo family on Hellstar. Master Xiumo personally asked me to accompany you throughout your trip to Hellstar and help you buy slaves. Thank you, Mr. Xiuwen. Xiuwen took Xia Xingchen and his party to have dinner first, and then took them to the room. It was already evening. Mr. Crossing, Hellstar is very dangerous at night. I suggest you go there at night, and don't go out. Xiuwen's words were sincere. Xia Xingchen and others were a little curious. What are the dangers, Mr. Xiuwen? Can you introduce them to us? Xiuwen said seriously. First of all, many slaves will escape at night. There are too many slaves on Hellstar, and the guards are very insufficient. Night is a golden time for slaves to escape. These escape slaves are all desperate people, and they will tear apart all the obstacles they encounter. When the slaves run away, the slave hunting team will be dispatched. They don't care about any laws or anything. If you meet them, you may be caught as a slave, even if you have a bracelet. And the escaped slaves will be sent to the Tequila family's corpse factory as raw materials, or to the living hunting ground as prey. Another danger is the garrison troops of Hellstar. Hellstar has a curfew at night, and only the slave hunting team with permission can move freely on Hellstar at night. If they encounter you, they will rob you of your property and then kill you to silence you. The last type is the most terrifying, the hungry slaves. Many slave owners' slaves are free range, with little food supply. Cannibalism often occurs here, and they will come out to hunt for food at night. And the fat white merchants are their delicacies. Xiuwen's story made everyone shudder. Looking at the reactions of the crowd, he smiled. Welcome to Hellstar. It was dark, and the luminous equipment inside the building materials outside the Silver Moon Hotel lit up, and the entire building's exterior emitted a soft white light. At this time, the entire building really emitted a soft moonlight like the moon. Everyone toured the fence of the hotel. Such a scene is indeed spectacular, but the darkness outside the fence breeds unknown dangers. Xia Xingchen and Keeley noticed that there were a large number of security personnel patrolling inside and outside the fence of the hotel, and even several mechas were on guard back and forth. Gunshots and human screams were heard from time to time in the distance outside the fence. These were some slaves who tried to sneak into the hotel and were discovered and shot. Chapter 343 Second-hand Armor Parts Market. The next morning, Xiuwen and a luxurious maglev car were waiting downstairs. Everyone got on the car and headed straight to the slave trading world. In the car, Xiuwen introduced the situation of the slave trading world. It was almost a small city, with the slave trading market as the center. There were high-end shops and a very primitive open-air market. The slave trading center was surrounded by some vehicle trading centers, second-hand armor parts trading centers, and some production materials and second-hand goods trading centers. Xia Xingchen said to Xiuwen, Mr. Xiuwen, to be honest, Ale and I are more interested in mechas. Every time we go to a place, we have to go to the second-hand mecha parts market to shop. How about you take us there first? Xiuwen bowed. As you wish, Mr. Ra Crossing. But there is one thing I want to explain to you in advance. Now that the Northern Empire is at war, all the new mechas in the hands of mecha dealers have been requisitioned to the army of the Northern Empire, and those second-hand mechas with better performance have also been requisitioned by the military. Now the second-hand mecha parts market only has mecha parts and some antique mechas, even old things from 100 or 200 years ago. You may be disappointed. Xia Xingchen laughed. Mr. Xiuwen, you don't know. For us mecha enthusiasts, new mechas may not necessarily be attractive. We can buy any new mechas in Chang'an Star. On the contrary, those precious antique mechas are more fascinating. I once had the honor of taking Mr. Zuo Leheng's mecha design class. He suggested that we get in touch with these antique mechas more and draw a lot of creative inspiration from them. Led by Xiuwen, the group came to the second-hand armor parts trading market, and everyone got off the maglev car. This market is very large. After all, this is the largest second-hand armor parts market in the entire Gemini and the vicinity of Gemini. But as Xiuwen said, there are only broken antiques here. Since there are no second-hand armors that can be shown off, very few people come here to shop. Many businesses are deserted, and many shops have simply closed down. However, some shops have northern characteristics, and the old-fashioned armors with unique shapes and designs are still very exciting to see. The armor design of the Northern Empire is simple, rough, tough and durable, and it is very powerful on the battlefield. However, their designs are also generally bulky, energy consuming, and in pursuit of the ultimate performance of a certain aspect of the armor, they sacrifice the performance of other aspects of the armor. Xia Xingchen introduced some knowledge about second-hand armor to everyone as they walked. Mr. Xia, if I want to buy some accessories, how can these things be transported out of Hellstar? Xia Xingchen suddenly thought of a very important question. Xia patiently explained, Mr. Crossing, the Silver Moon Hotel itself is very professional to serve customers who come to Hellstar to shop. The Silver Moon Hotel has a special storage and logistics center. You just need to contact the hotel and rent a warehouse of varying sizes. Whatever goods you see in the market, as long as you pay at the dedicated card reader at each merchant, you can get a transaction number. The money is deposited into the market's special account. Then you just need to provide the warehouse number, and the merchant will hire a special vehicle and porter for the market to deliver the goods you selected to the warehouse you rented. After you go back and check that the goods are correct, you can log into the market's website on your personal terminal, enter the transaction number, and confirm the payment before the merchant can get the money. When you leave Hellstar, the hotel will send a special cargo spacecraft to help you transport the goods to the space station or Heaven Star. Xia Xingchen nodded and applauded. It's really professional. Mr. Xia, then please help me contact a warehouse, which is large enough to accommodate 3 or 4 mechas. Xia nodded in agreement and immediately contacted the hotel. Not long after, he transmitted a number to Xia Xingchen's personal terminal. This was the number of a medium-sized warehouse. In just half a day, Xia Xingchen hadn't bought anything yet, but Baum had returned with a full load. He bought a lot of things, including some chemical materials. He proposed to go back and continue to make some things. Xylin and others really didn't like mechas, so Xia Xingchen asked Xia to take Baum, Julian and Xylin back first. They have 1K as a guide here, so they don't have to worry about getting lost. Before leaving, Xia suggested that Xia Xingchen and his friends must rush to the gathering point in the trading center square before 5 o'clock in the afternoon, which was close to dusk. The vehicles of the merchants who returned late would be gathered together to form a convoy and return to the hotel together. The market and the hotel would send mechas and vehicles to escort the convoy. Seeing that it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they had only visited less than 1/3 of the entire market. Keeler suggested that they should go in the direction of the gathering point, so everyone changed their route. When they passed a store in a relatively remote location, Xia Xingchen suddenly stopped. Unlike other people who use their eyes to go shopping, Xia Xingchen has been using his inside skills to scan the shops along the street. His brain is like a high-speed central optical computer, scanning and analyzing the accessories and mechas in each shop, and quickly judging the function of each accessory, so as not to miss those good things. The shop in front of him made his eyes light up. A huge dark green mecha was placed in the center of the shop, which attracted his attention. Xia Xingchen took the lead and walked into the shop, but he didn't see anyone coming out to greet customers. Is there anyone? Xia Xingchen shouted. Someone is here, please wait. A voice shouted. Not long after, a man in work clothes crawled out from the pile of accessories piled up like a small mountain at the back. This man is burly, about 190 centimeters tall, with a very dark complexion. It seems that he has some black blood and is a mixed race person, but looking at his face, he is not very old. Hello, sir, my name is Ta. I'm the owner of this shop. How can I help you? In the Northern Empire, Hellstar, a second-hand armor parts trading market, Xia Xingchen and others found a store, and the things inside caught Xia Xingchen's attention. Chapter 344 Mammoth Mecha. He is the owner of this shop. He is just 15 years old, but he has been running this shop for more than a year. He is an orphan who was abandoned at a very young age. Fortunately, the owner of this shop has no children, so he adopted him. Otherwise he might be captured by the slave hunting team and sold as a slave. Ta has been working in the shop since he was very sensible. He is very smart. When the shop owner disassembles and modifies the mecha, he watches and helps. He watches and remembers very carefully. When there is no one in the shop, he disassembles and assembles the mecha himself. The shop owner was surprised to see Ta's performance and gave all his skills to Ta. A year ago, the owner of the shop drank too much and fell drunk in the wild on his way home. As a result, he was killed and eaten by hungry slaves when night fell. So this shop became his. Although he is young, Ta has superb mecha modification skills and runs the shop very well. But the good times did not last long, and the Northern Empire declared independence. Nicholas declared a state of war and sent people to forcibly take away the mechas that could be used in the store and forcibly exchange the star coins in his hand with worthless new coins. As a result, Ta found that the new coins were like waste paper. After all, he was still young, unlike other merchants who had a small treasury, and the store's working capital was gone all of a sudden. What was even more terrible was that after the war, the flow of customers dropped sharply, and the store's income was pitifully small. In order to maintain the operation of the store, he had to sell the 4 slaves in the store at a low price. After all, the rent and management fees in this market cannot be delayed. Now, Ta was a little angry. In 5 days, it would be time to pay the rent for next month. If he could not pay the rent on time, his store would be taken away, including everything in the store. Moreover, the market did not accept new coins, only the hard currency of the Galactic Empire, star coins. He was looking for some valuable accessories in the pile of accessories to see if he could go to other stores to exchange some money. At this time, customers came to the door. Xia Xingchen pointed to the green mecha in the center of the store and said, "Boss, please introduce this mecha to us. I'm very interested." Xia Xingchen did not look down on Ta because he was young. He himself was not very old either. "Boss, this mecha is very special. If you buy it, you may not be able to use it. Of course, it is a good choice to collect it as an antique." Ta was very frank. "Tell me why." Xia Xingchen looked at him with a smile. "This is the Mammoth Mech, a product of Northern Heavy Industries 480 years ago, a heavy-duty Malay mech. Original parameters, height 5.6 meters, strength 25, agility 10, armor 30, speed 10. This performance was very surprising nearly 500 years ago, and it was like a bug on the battlefield. This mech has been in the warehouse of our store. I found that it was very intact at the time, so I modernized it. The engine and battery pack were replaced with the engine and battery pack of the Northern Empire's current general-purpose main battle heavy-duty mech, the North Wind Mech. Due to its heavy weight, I added several battery packs, so its endurance is about the same as that of an ordinary North Wind heavy mech. In addition, I replaced the mech's electrical components, detectors, sensors, etc. with products from the past few decades. I also replaced some aging parts. Now the parameters of this Mammoth Mech, height 5.6 meters, strength 32, agility 15, armor 32, speed 13. The weapon system has alloy horns at the joints of the whole body of the mecha, and the fists of the mecha are reinforced with alloy steel nails. The forearms of the mecha are hydraulic heavy hammer systems. There is also a pair of nearly 4-meter long alloy tusks at the front of the mecha. But what is regrettable is that this mecha used a motion simulation operating system at that time. Even an adult strongman would be exhausted after operating it for about 5 minutes. Ta is full of pride in this mecha, but there is a trace of regret. The Mammoth Mecha can be said to be the famous work of Northern Heavy Industry. Mammoth ancient vertebrate, mammal, proboscidea, true elephant family. The most famous species is the true mammoth, that is, the woolly mammoth. Mammoths lived about 11,000 years ago. They were covered with long hair and a thick layer of fat to keep out the cold. The last batch of mammoths became extinct around 1670 BC. This animal is tall and covered with long hair. A pair of long and thick tusks are strongly bent upward and backward and spiraled. Its skull is short, the top ridge is very high, and the upper and lower foreheads and alveoli are deep. The molar plates are closely arranged, and there are many of them. The third molar can have up to 30 plates. An adult mammoth is more than 5 meters tall and weighs 10 tons. With 2 huge tusks, it was the land overlord at that time, and even saber-toothed tigers did not dare to provoke it. This heavy mecha of Northern Heavy Industry is also named after the mammoth. However, the mental control system of the mecha was not yet popular at that time, so this mecha still uses the motion simulation operating system. In order to drive this mecha, people at that time also specially created gene warriors as mecha masters for this mecha. That is, some children were selected from childhood to be genetically enhanced with various drugs. These gene warriors have amazing physical strength, and their strength and endurance are several times or even dozens of times higher than ordinary people. But this is in exchange for overdrawing the vitality of the human body. The lifespan of the gene warrior is only a short 30 years. At that time in the Northern Star region, which is now the Northern Empire, the mammoth army composed of mammoth mechas was invincible in the atmosphere. It was not until the propulsion technology of the mecha advanced by leaps and bounds, the mobility of the mecha was greatly enhanced, and it also had the ability to fly, that the mammoth mecha was slowly eliminated. The reason why Xia Xingchen saw this mecha was because there was now another person named Yanma in their team. He wanted to give the Terami warrior mecha to Yanma and find another mecha for Yugo. And the mecha in front of him was exactly what he was looking for. A mecha known as a classic always has its own unique design. The mammoth mecha has been in service in the north for nearly 300 years. After continuous improvements, its design and technology are very mature. The most important thing is that its operating system is a very mature motion simulation operating system, which is just right for Yugo to use. Moreover, this mecha is very large in size and has great potential for modification and upgrading. For example, by adding a nuclear engine, red light thrusters, long-range weapon systems, and new armor, the performance of the mecha can even have a huge leap. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 345 Recruitment. Xia Xingchen was in a second-hand armor parts store on Hellstar. The young boss Ta was introducing his masterpiece to him, a mammoth armor that had been partially modernized. Xia Xingchen asked Ta some very professional technical questions about the armor. Ta answered fluently. From his answer, Xia Xingchen could feel that, although this young man had never been to school and had not received professional and systematic armor maintenance training, he had rich practical experience, very strong hands-on ability, and clear thinking and unique insights. How much do you want to sell this armor for? 30 million star coins. Star coins, not new coins. Ta said. Xia Xingchen hesitated. Because although this armor is an antique, it has been modified very well, and its performance is no problem, to sell it for 100 million star coins. In fact, this is just Xia Xingchen's idea, because the motion simulation operating system alone has caused the price of the armor to plummet. Seeing Xia Xingchen's hesitation, Ta misunderstood a little, and he thought Xia Xingchen thought the price was high. How about this? 20 million star coins, as long as you can pay it in full in one go, and confirm the payment within 2 days, I will sell it to you. It can't be any lower. Ta was forced to do this. 20 million star coins are actually only enough for 2 months of rent and management fees. The reason why the rent is so high is that the security of Hellstar is very unstable. Except in the market, other places on the planet cannot open stores and operate normally. Okay, deal. Xia Xingchen took out his payment card and swiped it on the consumer terminal of the store, and then told Ta the warehouse number. Soon, the market sent a professional transport vehicle to pack the mecha into the mecha transport container. It will be transported to the mecha warehouse of the Silver Moon Hotel tomorrow morning. Ta, why are you the only one in your store? Xia Xingchen asked. Sir, you don't know that this shop was left to me by my adoptive father. Now that the two countries are at war, all the good mechas on the market have been forcibly requisitioned, and the market rent is very high, but the problem is that there are not many tourists left now, and we can't even pay the rent. We can barely make it this month, but I don't know what to do next month. Maybe in a few months, I won't be able to pay the rent, and the market will confiscate my shop, and I'll have to move far away. You know, on Gemini, it's very difficult for people who are not slaves to find jobs. Xia Xingchen's eyes lit up when he heard this. Ta, let me introduce myself. My name is Axing. I'm an interstellar adventurer. In your words, I'm a rich second generation. I want to form a small transport fleet now, but I lack a good mecha maintenance technician. You can also feel how bad the current economic situation is. I don't think it will change before the end of the war. It will only get worse. Instead of waiting to die here, you might as well go out with me to try your luck. And once the two countries go to war, Gemini will inevitably fall into a state of devastation. At that time, it may be difficult to ensure personal safety. So, I would like to invite you to join our team. This. Ta was a little tempted, but also a little hesitant. In fact, he had this idea a long time ago, but because he was self-taught and did not have a mecha maintenance certificate, many exploration and freight teams would rather choose a slave with mecha maintenance technology, which would be cheaper. And he was also worried about safety issues. In space, once you get on a pirate ship, you can't get off. You must know that most of the people who come to Gemini are slave traders. It would be bad if they tricked you onto the ship and sold you as a slave. Xia Xingchen saw his concerns and continued, you don't have to worry about safety. First of all, I'm not a star pirate or a desperado. I'm just traveling around and wrestling some things. Smuggling is not a capital crime. And there are 2 C-class mecha masters and a nuclear mecha on my spaceship. The Yugo and Yanma next to me defeated many 100-win war slaves in a gambling war a few days ago. Even the brothers Xiu Yan and Xiu Yu of the Xiu Mo family were defeated by this Yugo alone. So you don't have to worry about safety. These words surprised Ta a lot. He didn't expect that these people had such a background. He looked at Yugo carefully and found that he was indeed the great man from Terami Star a few days ago. He also watched the live broadcast of those gambling fights on the internet and was deeply impressed. Xia Xingchen looked at Ta still silent and simply added fuel to the fire. I'm from Chang'an Star. My uncle is S-class mecha master Zuo Wang. My mecha design teacher is Mr. Zuo Lehang. After I travel in the Northern Empire for a while, I will definitely return to Chang'an Star before the war. It is very safe there. Moreover, I can arrange for you to go to school, learn the most advanced mecha knowledge, let you pass the mecha maintenance qualification certificate, and even let you listen to Mr. Zuo's lectures. Xia Xingchen himself is a mecha maintenance master. He knows how tempting his words are to a mecha maintenance master. Especially listening to Mr. Zuo Lehang's lectures. That is the dream of countless mecha maintenance masters. Such a class can change their lives and determine the heights they can reach in the mecha maintenance industry in their lifetime. Ta was stunned on the spot. His heart was very entangled and there was a very fierce ideological struggle. Seeing that it was getting late, Xia Xingchen took out a business card from his pocket. It's getting dark. We should leave. Here is my contact number. Think about it carefully. I will probably stay in Gemini for about a week. If you figure it out, contact me as soon as possible. After leaving Ta's shop, Xia Xingchen and others called a taxi serving in the park, and several people went straight to the gathering point. Axing, is there anything special about this Ta? I see you want to recruit him, Keeley asked curiously. Xia Xingchen nodded. More than special, this kid is a genius in mecha maintenance. I have reached my current level because I met a good teacher, but this kid has no one to teach him, no experts to guide him. It is all because of his diligence and understanding. This is a real genius. Ta had insomnia. That night, he couldn't sleep all night, tossing and turning. Xia Xingchen's invitation made him a little tempted. What Xia Xingchen said was not wrong at all. There is no hope for this planet now. Chapter 346 Cruise. Today he sold the mammoth mech, which solved his immediate problem, but what about 2 months later? He didn't know how long it would take for a generous customer like Xia Xingchen to come across one. Moreover, there was no more valuable stuff like the mammoth mech in his store. If the time came, he would be forced to move out and close the store, and the 20 million would be wasted. The most important thing was the conditions Xia Xingchen offered. Leave this damn Hellstar. Leave the northern starfield facing the threat of war. Go to school. Take the mech repairman qualification certificate. Listen to Mr. Zuo Lehang's lectures. Moreover, this boss Axing has a partner as powerful as you go, so there should be no problem with safety. There is only one chance, and if you miss it, there will be no more chances. After a night of silence, Ta dialed Xia Xingchen's number. Mr. Axing, I want to work with you. Please take me away from Hellstar. Xia Xingchen jumped up happily after hearing Ta's answer. Ta, welcome to join my team. I'll send a car to pick you up. Don't bother, Mr. Axing. I need to deal with the things in the store. I'll come to you in 3 days. After the call ended, Tar began to pack his luggage. He took the initiative to contact the owners of other stores. He wanted to sell the accessories in his hands at a low price. That was almost the price of scrap metal. According to the original plan, Fermi Korovin should have returned to the Korovin star system as soon as possible after collecting the income submitted by the major families on Gemini this month. However, Chen Ziguan's instigation made him decide to take action against the Xiumo family in advance. Moreover, the income of Gemini has indeed decreased a lot in the past few months. If he goes back like this, he will definitely be severely reprimanded for his poor performance. Those old guys in the family only look at the results and not the process. If he can take this opportunity to confiscate the property of the Xiumo family, he can shut up those old guys in the family. In addition, he can also take this opportunity to enrich himself by confiscating the property of the Xiumo family. Now there is chaos and chaos, and it is not bad to get some star coins. Therefore, Fermi Korovin asked the family to send someone to deal with the Xiumo family. He temporarily stayed in Gemini to coordinate the preliminary preparations. On this day, he accepted Takeda Yushin's invitation to come to Gemini to carry out real-life hunting activities. Takeda Yushin is a cunning old man. He is cruel and cunning by nature, but in front of those who are much stronger than him, he is servile and fawning. He is the best bug, very good at dealing with things, and is liked by his master. This is probably the nature of the Japanese people. Fermi Korovin likes Takeda Yushin, the dog, very much. Every time he comes to Gemini, Takeda Yushin treats him well with good food and drink. It's even more attentive than a son serving his father. In addition to enjoying top beauties and top food, every time he leaves, Takeda will quietly give him an anonymous payment card, and the number in it always makes him very satisfied. Today, Takeda Yushin invited Fermi Korovin to hunt in his real-life hunting ground on the shore of Hudson Lake. Hudson Lake is the largest lake on Hellstar. When humans began to develop Hellstar, Hudson Lake was a landing site for spacecraft. Gemini is a naturally habitable planet with its own atmosphere and water, so the vegetation on the shore of Hudson Lake is lush and the scenery is beautiful. The water area of Hudson Lake is 60,000 square kilometers, the deepest point is more than 2,000 meters, and the average water depth is 65.2 meters. The lake is rich in flora and fauna and the water quality is very good. The lake presents a charming azure color. Because the shape of Hudson Lake is an almost perfect circle, it is also called the blue gem on the Hellstar. Since everyone felt very tired after shopping in the second-hand armor parts market for a whole day, Xia Xingchen suggested that everyone relax for a day. Xia suggested that they take a cruise to see the beauty of Hudson Lake. The Diamond Princess cruise ship is 290.4 meters long, 48.2 meters wide, 62.5 meters high, and has a load capacity of 116,000 tons. It can accommodate 2,670 passengers, with a total of 1,337 cabins, 748 of which have private terraces. There are 5 main restaurants on the ship, which can provide tourists with top cuisine from multiple planets in the Milky Way. The cruise ship also has 4 swimming pools of varying sizes, a princess theater that can accommodate more than 700 people, various bars, nightclubs, luxury casinos, duty-free shops, fitness centers and spas, libraries, large mecha simulators, and even a romantic wedding hall. After the Northern Empire declared war on the Galactic Empire, the tourism industry in Gemini suffered a heavy blow. The Diamond Princess cruise ship, which is usually hard to get a ticket, now has only more than 400 tourists. Xia Xingchen and his party came to the cruise ship under the leadership of Xia. If you want to play or enjoy the beautiful scenery, taking a primitive means of transportation such as a cruise ship is a different experience. Xia Xingchen and others booked 7 luxury rooms on the ship. This trip around the lake will take 2 days and 2 nights. There are a total of 7 cruise ships on the entire Hudson Lake, and every day a cruise ship will dock at the pier not far from the Silver Moon Hotel. Today is the turn of the Diamond Princess. After arriving on the ship, everyone separated and moved freely. Everyone got a wristband when boarding the ship, and all consumption will be recorded on the wristband and settled uniformly when disembarking. Yugo and Yangma went to talk in secret. They were almost inseparable now. Baum said they had fallen in love. Xiaolin was doing a spa alone. Baum, Julian and Wang Ke were curiously wandering around the boat. Xia Xingchen, Keeley and Xia Yuan were lying comfortably on the benches next to the swimming pool on the top deck of the cruise ship. They were chatting and basking in the sun. There were many bikini slave girls coming and going by the pool. The couples were so pretty. The cruise ship had been out of the dock for more than 3 hours and was running smoothly on the lake about 2 kilometers away from the shore. Xia Yuan pointed to the shore, where there was a rocky reef. The reef extended to the shore and there was an endless green grassland. But he could vaguely see someone running desperately on the grass, with a maglev car chasing behind him, and he could vaguely hear gunshots. Looking around, you can see more than 10 mechas driving people back and forth on the shore of the lake. This is the real hunting ground of the Tequila family. Those rich people treat humans as prey and kill them at will. Alas, they are really inhumane. God will punish them. Xia Yuan said while sighing. Xia Xingchen and Keeley stood up. There were dozens of high-powered telescopes on the edge of the deck. These monocular telescopes have excellent performance. When the weather is good, you can even see the buildings on the Heaven Star. The two looked at the shore through the telescope, and the scene in front of them made them grit their teeth in hatred. Chapter 347 The Evil of Human Nature. Xia Xingchen and others came to the Diamond Princess cruise ship on Lake Hudson, intending to take a rest and adjust. On the 18th floor deck of the Diamond Princess, Xia Xingchen and Keeley saw a scene that made them very angry through the high-powered telescope on the deck. There were dozens of naked slaves on the shore, both men and women, old and young, running desperately on the grass. There were also several hounds chasing them behind them. A few dozen meters behind the crowd followed an open-top RV, with several people on the RV, shooting these fleeing people with guns and bows and arrows. People were constantly hit by bullets and bows and arrows, and fell to the ground, and others were pounced on, and bitten by ferocious hounds, making heart-wrenching screams. 300 or 400 meters in front of the open-top RV, there were 2 large closed trucks constantly throwing slaves onto the grass, and 200 or 300 meters behind the open-top trucks, followed 2 large trucks with mechanical arms. They followed all the way, and threw the bodies of the killed slaves onto the trucks. Some slaves wanted to escape to the seaside, but there were more than 10 mechas guarding the seaside. The mecha masters driving these mechas kept shooting at them with the machine guns on the mechas, and the bullets tore their bodies apart. Some slaves were trampled into meat paste by the mechas as soon as they approached the mechas. The scene in front of them was simply hell on earth. Keeley pointed the telescope at the open car, and when he saw the people in the car, he was stunned. Xingchen, look at the people in the car. The white man who is shooting with a bow and arrow is Fermi Korovin, the agent of the Korovin family in Gemini, and the wretched man holding 2 naked women is Takeda Yushin, the patriarch of the Tequila family. Keeley said hatefully. These 2 people are one of his assassination targets, so he firmly remembers the appearance of the 2 people in his mind. Xia Xingchen was also surprised to hear Keeley's introduction. He talked about these assassination targets with Keeley and was very surprised to meet these 2 people here. He pointed the telescope at the car and saw Fermi Korovin drawing his bow and arrow. As soon as he let go, a child in his teens fell to the ground in the crowd running desperately in front of him. You beast, I won't let you go. Xia Xingchen gritted his teeth. The distance is 4,200 meters, and the vehicle is moving at a speed of about 3 meters per second. There are fully armed guards on the shore, and there are 11 mechas within a radius of 2 kilometers. It would be great if there were laser weapons now. Keeley estimated the distance between the enemy and us, and it was a pity. They came to play today and did not bring long-range weapons. After hearing what Keeley said, Xia Xingchen came up with a plan. Alen, leave these 2 people to me. Don't worry, I'm sure I can get away safely. Don't tell others, I will find you after I complete the task. But you don't have a weapon. Believe me, weapons are not a problem. The number of guards of these 2 beasts today is limited. It will be difficult to kill them again if you miss such an opportunity. Xia Xingchen said firmly. Do you need help? Yes, just help me keep the others stable. Just find any excuse. Xia Xingchen said, got up and walked to the bench, and said to Xiaowen, old man, I feel a little tired, maybe I didn't sleep well last night. Xiaowen was a little nervous, asking, are you sick? Do you need to call a doctor? Thank you for your kindness, sir. I'm just sleepy. I'm going back to my room to rest first. Don't disturb me when I eat. I'll just meditate for a while, and my mental strength has shown signs of breakthrough recently. I want to consolidate it. Xia Xingchen explained. After bidding farewell to Xiaowen, Xia Xingchen took the elevator to the lowest deck. He simply disguised his appearance and put on a coat that he didn't know where he came from, so that even if someone checked the surveillance, they wouldn't be able to find him. There were no other people on this deck except for a few couples who were having an affair in the corner because the view here was not good and the beautiful scenery could not be seen. Xia Xingchen's inside skills were fully activated, and he walked around this deck and finally found a blind spot on the video surveillance on the hull near the stern. It's here. Xia Xingchen gritted his teeth, made up his mind, and jumped into the water from the deck more than 20 meters high. He concentrated his mental power outside his body, and the huge impact of entering the water did not hurt him. Moreover, the mental power formed a barrier 1 centimeter away from his body, and all the water was blocked outside the barrier. Xia Xingchen's clothes were not even wet. After entering the water, Xia Xingchen's body dived more than 10 meters at a high speed under the impetus of mental power. A few seconds later, the huge propeller passed a few meters above his head. The huge wake pushed Xia Xingchen's body to drift backwards for dozens of meters. Xia Xingchen tried hard to stabilize his body. He quickly took out a small underwater propeller and an oxygen cylinder from the space of the portable mecha. Xia Xingchen put on the oxygen device, and the silent motor sounded, taking Xia Xingchen to the place where Takeda Yuxin and Fermi Korovin had just been. There is a passive sonar system every few hundred meters underwater. This is for the Takeda family, to prevent submarines and mechas from sneaking into the hunting grounds through the water. Fortunately, the underwater thruster is only 1 meter long and is equipped with an electromagnetic shielding shell, so Xia Xingchen and the underwater thruster did not trigger these detectors. After more than 10 minutes, Xia Xingchen felt that the position should be about the same. The density of passive sonar in this area is not high, so Xia Xingchen took out the Black Duke mecha as a backup from the mecha space. After many trainings, Xia Xingchen has been able to take out the mecha so that his body is just in the cockpit of the mecha. This can save dozens of seconds of very precious time in the battle. The mecha was started, and the Black Duke mecha engine began to work. 10 seconds later, all parts of the mecha were preheated and charged. Xia Xingchen stepped on the engine power pedal, and the thrusters of the Black Duke mecha were fully opened. The calm lake surface rolled violently, as if the water was boiled. The mecha soared into the sky. Fermi Korovin shot the slaves who were running away with a bow and arrow for a while. Feeling that the muscles in his arms were sore, he threw away the compound bow, picked up a shotgun, and started shooting at the slaves. A naked woman next to him was counting for him. Finally, Fermi Korovin put down his gun. Chapter 348 Assault. 100 people. Master Fermi is awesome. The blonde beauty in charge of counting flattered with a wink. Fermi Korovin lay down comfortably on the sofa, and immediately 2 naked women came up to massage his arms. Fermi waved his hand, and another naked woman brought a tray with a small white box inside, which contained some white powder. Fermi took a thick straw, inserted one end into his nose, and the other end into the powder, and inhaled hard. As the powder entered the nasal cavity, an extremely comfortable feeling filled the whole body, and all the fatigue in the body was swept away. This is a new type of drug called Fallen Angel, which is a psychedelic angel diluted 100 times and added with other drugs. The side effects are much smaller than those of Dream Angel, and the price is much cheaper, which is deeply loved by the northern nobles. Takeda Yushin then moved his pig snout away from the chest of a naked woman and said with a smile, Mr. Korovin, how does it feel to have completed the first 100 manslaying? It's simply wonderful, Takeda-kun. You are in great shape, and you killed so many prey with a bow and arrow. When I was your age, I couldn't pull the bow and arrow anymore. After killing more than 10 with a bow and arrow, Takeda Yushin said flatteringly. Fermi Korovin was very proud, thinking how could a yellow-skinned monkey like you compare with me. Takeda-kun, arrange 1,000 slaves for me next time. I want to complete the feat of 1,000 slayings. As you wish. Takeda Yashin agreed with a smile. But in his heart he secretly cursed Korovin's greed. The slaves he killed were all provided by the Takeda family for free, and this was all money. I don't know if you are having fun. Are you going to continue killing people here, or go to another place to slay 100 people? Takeda Yashin said mysteriously. Change place? What do you mean? Femi Korovin was very confused. I mean, I have prepared 100 beauties, waiting for you to kill 100 people. Ha 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 ha. The two looked at each other and laughed out loud. At this moment, a shrill alarm suddenly sounded, and everyone was stunned. At this moment, in the command center of the real hunting ground, a bunch of people were stunned by the alarm sent by the sonar detector in the lake, and a mecha appeared out of thin air there. The staff on duty was still wondering how this mecha appeared there, but he still instinctively pressed the alarm. The Black Duke mecha took off into the air, leaving Xia Xingchen very little time to aim. Xia Xingchen quickly locked the target with his mental power and pressed the trigger of the mecha laser cannon. Femi Korovin and Takeda Yashin were both stunned. They didn't know what happened. Takeda Yashin thought that his men were making a fuss or making a mistake because there were more than 100 mechas around the entire hunting ground, as well as anti-aircraft missile systems and thousands of infantry. This is completely a small army. He couldn't think of anyone who could attack here. But when he turned his head, his mouth opened in shock. A thick purple laser came into view. This was the last scene he and Femi Korovin saw in this world. Xia Xingchen shot 3 times in a row, killing the maglev car that Femi Korovin and Takeda Yashin were riding. The other 2 lasers killed 2 mechas. Then he turned and ran. The thrusters on the back of the Black Duke mecha were fully opened, fleeing to the center of the lake. The remaining 9 mechas started their thrusters to catch up. The armor plates on the back and shoulders of the Black Duke mecha opened, and there were 4 micro anti-mecha missile launchers inside. Each launcher was loaded with 8 micro anti-mecha missiles. Xia Xingchen pressed a button and locked the pursuers behind with his mental power. A total of 24 anti-mecha missiles were launched. The 2 mechas chasing in the front were unable to dodge and crashed into the anti-mecha missiles. The cockpit and the head of the mecha were hit, losing their combat capability and falling into Hudson Lake. The remaining mechas dodged one after another, but one mecha was hit and withdrew from the battle. The distance between the Black Duke mecha and the mechas behind it quickly widened. Xia Xingchen set up the flight program of the mecha, and now the Black Duke mecha is flying close to the sea surface, only 2 or 3 meters away from the water surface. The airwaves caused by the mecha passing by caused waves of water. Xia Xingchen opened the cockpit door and could see the water surface passing quickly under the mecha. Xia Xingchen performed a few more operations, and the Black Duke mecha fired 4 special micro missiles. These 4 missiles exploded in the air, forming a huge smoke barrage in the air. At this time, the remaining 4 anti-mecha missiles were also fired and drilled into the barrage. The 4 mechas behind saw the smoke barrage in front of them and instinctively wanted to dodge, but 4 micro anti-mecha missiles suddenly emerged from the barrage. The 2 mechas in the front were unable to dodge, were hit in the cockpit, and fell into the water. The 4 surviving mechas were evading in a panic, but what they didn't know was that Xia Xingchen had no anti-mecha missiles left, and while they were busy dodging the barrage, Xia Xingchen jumped out of the cockpit and plunged into the water. Without the protection of mental power, ordinary people would be smashed into a pulp if they jumped into the water from such a high-speed flying mecha. Even with the protection of mental power, Xia Xingchen didn't feel very good, as if his internal organs were about to shift. However, he gritted his teeth and used mental power to control his body to sink to the bottom of the deep lake. Seeing that the Black Duke mecha did not continue to launch missiles, the remaining 4 mechas continued to chase forward. They did not notice that the Black Duke mecha master had jumped into the water. 10 seconds later, the Black Duke mecha suddenly raised its altitude and flew to the high altitude west of Hudson Lake. The pursuers also changed direction accordingly. They flew and fired at the same time. Finally, after the 4 mechas fired dozens of shots, the thruster of the Black Duke mecha was hit. Black smoke came out, the speed slowed down, and it was shaky in mid-air. The mecha in front quickly landed on the water. "Otherwise I will kill you without mercy." The chasing mecha threatened on the public communication channel, but there was no response. The Black Duke mecha still struggled forward stubbornly. "Catch him, he must be alive." The leading command mecha received the order from his superior and conveyed it to his subordinates. Chapter 349 Whirlpool. Xia Xingchen had already set up the program for the mecha. When the mecha was hit, and the flight altitude was getting lower and lower, the mecha self-destruct system began to work. At this time, 2 mechas had already approached the Black Duke and raised the light swords in their hands. The Black Duke was about to fall on the water, and the height was only 3 meters, which met the conditions for the self-destruct system to be triggered. Since this Black Duke mecha was used by Xia Xingchen for special missions such as assassination, the number of internal explosives installed in it was more than double that of ordinary mechas. With a loud bang, mecha fragments flew all over the sky, and a huge flame engulfed the 2 mechas closest to them. The mecha masters on the remaining 2 mechas were stunned. They were a little scared. If they were closer just now. Command center, the target mecha has self-destructed, and now there is nothing left. We still have 2 mechas left. Waste, a bunch of waste. The duty officer of the command center slammed the table in anger. Stay there and look carefully for any survivors. I'll send a boat over right away. But sir, it's impossible for anyone to survive such a tragic explosion. Besides, our mechas are running low on energy. If you don't have much energy, fall into the lake. If you keep talking nonsense, you will be prey in the hunting ground tomorrow. The commander roared hysterically. Xia Xingchen sailed for several hours under 10 meters of water with a small underwater thruster. He didn't surface until after dark. Because the water at Hudson Lake is too clear, he would be easily discovered if he sailed in shallow places during the day. Xia Xingchen had been using his mental power to fight against the strong water pressure underwater, which consumed a lot of energy. At this time, he was exhausted physically and mentally. He floated on the lake, replaced the energy block for the underwater thruster, and ate some food. He continued to sail in one direction. Xia Xingchen didn't dare to use satellite and Gemini's land positioning. His personal terminal was always offline. Because he knew that the Tequila family and the Korovin family would definitely locate the personal terminals that appeared in the range of Hudson Lake during this period to determine the location of the assassin. Xia Xingchen simply drove in a straight line in one direction. Anyway, Hudson Lake is round. As long as he moves forward in a straight line, he will always reach the shore. The night was dark, and layers of mist rose on the lake. As he sailed, the fog became thicker and thicker, and finally he couldn't see his hand in front of his face. Xia Xingchen forced himself to be alert, and turned on his insight skill. It was late at night, and there might be some unknown threats on the vast water surface, so he couldn't be careless. However, he soon found that something was wrong. The fog seemed to block his mental power. Now the effective range of his insight skill can only reach 5 meters. After a while, something even more wrong happened. He felt that the direction of the water flow under him had changed. If there was no fog at this time, looking down from the sky, a huge vortex with a diameter of 2 kilometers appeared in the center of Hudson Lake, and Xia Xingchen was already at the edge of the vortex. When he found that something was wrong and wanted to change direction, it was too late. Xia Xingchen was pulled to the center of the vortex by the huge force of the water flow. Xia Xingchen wanted to use his mental power to get rid of the power of the vortex, but how could his personal power possibly compete with the natural force between heaven and earth? Xia Xingchen was sucked into the deep vortex and lost consciousness. At this time, the Gemini was in chaos. Especially the Hellstar, where the Tequila family's headquarters was located, was in a bloody storm. Takeda Takanobu died suddenly, and the people of the Tequila family did not first consider finding the murderer and revenge, but began to be busy killing people to seize power. After Takeda Takanobu's death, the 3 major forces in the Tequila family that seemed to be at peace: Takeda Takanobu's younger brother Takeda Takanobu, Takeda Takanobu's eldest son Takeda Jiufu, and Takeda Takanobu's second son Takeda Yukio suddenly rose up and attacked each other. Uncles and nephews, brothers killed each other. Takeda Takanobu sent people to attack the houses of Takeda Takiya and Takeda Yukio, and Takeda Takiya sent people to blow up the maglev cars of his uncle and brother. Takeda Yukio was not a good person either. He asked his men to blow up the gate of the slave farm under Takeda Takanobu and Takeda Takia. Under the desire to survive, the slaves of the Takeda family took up weapons and escaped from the cage. So the armed forces of the Takeda family began to be busy capturing slaves again. In the end, Takeda Takia killed his uncle and brother and gained control of the Takeda family. However, their family's armed forces and death squads lost 70% in this infighting, and 2/3 of their slaves escaped. The turmoil of the Takeda family lasted for 3 days, during which the Takeda family suffered heavy losses. Only then did Takeda Takia remember to investigate the assassination. The Takeda family, the Korovin family and Major General Amori, commander of the Gemini Security Force, formed an investigation team to investigate the assassination. However, the results of the investigation were shrouded in mystery. Because the Black Duke mecha exploded close to the lake, the investigation team could not find any body fragments. They all agreed that the murderer was blown to pieces, and no one thought that the mecha master had jumped out of the mecha to escape. They did not find any directional marks on the wreckage of the mecha. They did not understand how this mecha passed through the layers of detector blockades and slipped to the lakeside. Before Xia Xingchen took out the mecha, the detectors densely distributed on the lakeside did not sound any alarms. Some people speculated that the mecha master who assassinated might have space equipment, which was laughed at by all. To have space equipment that can accommodate mechas, only the top few S-level mecha masters and the Emperor of the Galactic Empire have such equipment. How could such a person come to assassinate these two ants? By analyzing the motive for the murder, some people suspected that it was done by the Zumo family at the beginning. However, although the Zumo family is powerful, it has always been a good person for decades and never intervened in any active conflicts. Moreover, after investigation, it was found that the main members of the Zumo family were meeting guests at the time of the incident, and there was no sign of any mobilization of their family's armed forces. Moreover, Chen Ziguan and Old Omaha could confirm that there was absolutely no leak of their intention to deal with the Zumo family. It was not like a revenge killing by the Zumo family. As for Fermi Korovin, although he was a bit domineering, he only had intersections with the 4 major families in Gemini, and their major families had to curry favor with the Korovin family, so it was impossible for anyone to kill him. The biggest possibility was Takeda Yushin, who had killed countless people and was engaged in unscrupulous business. There was almost no one on Gemini who didn't hate him. This time it was very likely that the enemy assassinated Takeda Yushin, and Fermi Korovin was the unlucky guy who was implicated. The news of Fermi Korovin's murder reached the Korovin planet, and the results of the investigation were also delivered a few days later. The Korovin family immediately sent Dematia Korovin to Gemini quickly. Dematia Korovin is a resourceful man. Many major decisions and tactical actions within the Korovin family are planned and directed by him behind the scenes. He is also known as the brain of the Korovin family. Dematia Korovin has several purposes for this trip. First, to investigate the real reason why Fermi Korovin and Takeda Yushin were killed. Second, to get back the profits of Gemini last month and this month. Third, to coordinate and organize military operations against the Zumo family. The news of Fermi Korovin and Takeda Yushin's murder quickly spread throughout Gemini. Everyone was shocked and excited. Finally, someone could stand up and punish the devil. After learning the news, Keeler arranged for Julian and Wan K to land at the next dock and take the space shuttle directly back to the evil thoughts at the Gemini space station. Then he announced to others that Xia Xingchen had something to do and went back to the evil thoughts with Julian first, and the others could play whatever they wanted on Gemini. This was mainly for XIUN to see, otherwise it would be difficult to explain if such a big living person disappeared. Moreover, he was not completely confident about the new members of their team, Amar and Charlene, so it would be best to keep this matter secret from them for the time being. Chapter 350 Under the Whirlpool. Xia Xingchen slowly opened his eyes. He finally woke up, but found himself in a dark passage. Xia Xingchen recalled that before he lost consciousness, he was sucked into a large whirlpool in the center of Hudson Lake. Although he tried to use his mental power to get rid of the whirlpool, he was still sucked in. Looking at the personal terminal in his hand, it had lost its function and the screen was dead silent. No matter how he turned it on, there was no response. Xia Xingchen was a little frightened. You know, with the development of technology now, the quality of personal terminals is very good. Anti-theft, explosion-proof, waterproof, pressure-resistant, and anti-magnetic. Even if it is a grenade explosion, it will not be damaged, as long as it is not too close. But now, such a strong thing is broken. It can be seen how terrifying the power of the whirlpool is. Xia Xingchen took out food and water from the space of the portable mecha, ate a big meal, and meditated for 2 hours. When his physical strength and spirit were mostly restored, he stood up. He took out a strong light flashlight and Ningfeng sword from the space of the portable mecha. He also found that his mental power was greatly suppressed here, as if something was interfering with his mental power. Here, his detection skills could only detect a pitiful distance of 2 or 3 meters. Turning on the flashlight, he found himself in an underground passage with a very good ventilation system. His wet clothes had been dried by the wind for such a long time. You know, he was dragged into the deep bottom of the lake. After walking forward for a while, he turned into another passage. As soon as he stepped onto the ground of the passage, the lighting sources on both sides of the passage slowly lit up. Xia Xingchen continued to walk forward. After walking for dozens of meters, he heard a bang and a large alloy door fell behind him, closing the passage behind him. Xia Xingchen strengthened his vigilance and continued to move forward. Every 30 meters he moved forward, a large door would fall to cut off his retreat. Xia Xingchen frowned and continued to move forward with his sword. Finally, the passage came to the end. In front of him was a 3-meter high alloy door. At the door were 2 human-shaped machines. Xia Xingchen knew that this was a robot. Xia Xingchen slowly approached the 2 robots. Suddenly, the red lights on the robot's eyes lit up, which looked very strange in such a quiet space. And %% a long string of obscure language jumped out of the robot's mouth. Xia Xingchen found that he actually understood this language. The robot said, "Please pass the identity verification first, otherwise you will be killed without mercy." Although he understood, he still didn't understand what the robot meant by identity verification. Xia Xingchen took another step forward, and this caused a sudden change. One of the robots suddenly extended 2 pairs of 60cm blade claws from the back of its hands, and rushed towards Xia Xingchen quickly. Although Xia Xingchen was very careful, he still didn't dodge. The blade claws passed by Xia Xingchen's clothes on his abdomen, and the clothes were cut with a sizzling sound, and 3 blood marks appeared on his belly. Xia Xingchen broke out in a cold sweat immediately. If the blade claws went 2 millimeters further, he would end up being disemboweled. Xia Xingchen dodged the attack and swung his sword at the robot, but the robot was extremely flexible. It dodged and raised its hand to block the attack of the Ningfeng sword with its blade claws. The robot was extremely powerful and its moves were extremely fast. Although it did not have any fake moves, it had a thick shell on its body. Even if it was hit by the Ningfeng sword, sparks flew everywhere, but it only left a shallow white mark on the shell. Soon, another robot rushed up and attacked Xia Xingchen. 4 blade claws flew up and down, surrounding Xia Xingchen, leaving several bloody marks on his body and arms. Xia Xingchen's head was sweating. He knew that he had to fight quickly, otherwise, when his physical strength was exhausted, it would be his death. Thinking of this, Xia Xingchen's inside skill was fully activated, and the robot's movement slowed down. However, although it was a little slower, Xia Xingchen was not sure that he could completely avoid it, because his movements might not be able to keep up with the robot's movements. Another point is that Xia Xingchen can use the inside skill to predict the opponent's actions in advance by analyzing the movement of human muscles, but he can't predict the 2 steel monsters in front of him by muscle. Xia Xingchen took a few steps back and adjusted his posture. The Ningfeng sword in his hand suddenly lit up like a fire. In the inside skill, Xia Xingchen saw 2 robots getting closer and closer and stretched out their blade claws to him. Now, Xia Xingchen made a move, and the sword chopped down from the upper side at a very strange angle. Red light flashed across the heads of the 2 robots, and the neat cuts emitted a fiery red light. Bang, bang 2 times. The 2 mechanical heads fell to the ground, and the robot's body finally stopped moving. Xia Xingchen secretly rejoiced that the two robots were highly anthropomorphic, and the control system and sensor detectors of the robots were all in the head. If it were those robots with a very low degree of anthropomorphism, their heads would just be a decoration, and Xia Xingchen would be in danger. After killing the two robots, Xia Xingchen found that his clothes were soaked. He sat on the ground to recover his strength. This life and death struggle of just a few minutes made him feel exhausted. Although he was very interested in the structure of the two robots, he still gave up the urge to dismantle the two robots to see the internal structure. Who knows if there is a self-destruct system installed in them. After resting for more than 10 minutes, Xia Xingchen stood up, picked up the Ningfeng sword, and continued to walk towards the alloy door. Xia Xingchen walked towards the alloy door carefully. Just when he was 1 meter away from the door suddenly opened automatically to both sides. At the other end of the door was a large hall. The hall was originally dark, but suddenly thousands of red dots lit up in the darkness. Then, the lights in the hall also slowly lit up. Xia Xingchen was scared to death when he saw the scene in front of him. It turned out that the thousands of small red dots were actually the eyes of thousands or even tens of thousands of robots. Then, there was the sound of weapons popping out, and the backs of the hands of these thousands of robots stretched out blade claws one after another. Some robots also held various other weapons in their hands. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.